evening. Today is Monday, July 26th, 2021. The time is 6:02 p.m. and this is a regular meeting of the Romulus Community Schools Board of Education. Public participation via electronic meeting on YouTube Live and also Google Meet or in person are all available for this meeting. The links to those virtual platforms are posted on the district website. Pursuant to Senate Bill 1108, Wayne County Local Public Health Department Emergency Epidemic Order in response to the COVID-19 pandemic under MCL 333.2453, declaration of continued emergency due to COVID-19 to allow public meetings of governmental bodies to be held remotely under Public Act 228 of 2020 extended from June 30th, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. And if we have any member who joins remotely, please state your location. Madam Secretary, will you please do the roll call?
Bergeron.
Present.
Wester. Terrell.
Present.
Kennard.
Here.
German.
Present.
Piles.
Present.
Evans present.
We have a quorum. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First on the agenda is the acceptance of the agenda. So I move that the Board of Education accept the meeting agenda as presented. Is there support?
Support. Kennard.
Moved by Piles, supported by Kennard. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
President Piles, is this for the consent agenda?
This is just the meeting agenda.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. The agenda has been accepted by the board. Next item on the agenda is a personal favorite. We have student spotlight. Ms. Race, if you would please come to the floor, and if a board member would please provide her with a microphone. Ms. Race is our music and band teacher for our high school and our middle school. She's also a Romulus High School alum and very much committed to our students, our community. And Ms. Race, I will turn the floor over to you so you can talk about our student spotlight tonight.
Sure. So I just have a little brief bragging moment for a couple of my students. And some of you guys got this in an email from me last week, but I'm here to talk a little bit about our salutatorian from the spring, Mr. Brett Sherwood. He unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight due to a family obligation, but Brett started working in May of last year when he decided he was attending the University of Michigan to audition for their marching band. So if you've ever watched the Michigan Marching Band on TV, super exciting, really top-notch ensemble. And Mr. Sherwood and I met once a week, all the way through pretty much May, June, and even through these summer months here. I've either been meeting him up at the building or we've met virtually a few times. He had to record 2 different pieces of music that are collegiate level saxophone pieces. He plays the alto saxophone. And he just found out last week that he was accepted. So really huge deal, and congratulations to Brett for that, especially as a freshman and as somebody who is not intending to study music as their major. It's a really big honor. So I am super, super proud of him for that. I also have another student who prefers to remain nameless at this time. She's still continuing the audition process. She's in the drum line, and she's auditioning to play the cymbals. And they actually have the drum line practice together with the band all the way up through mid-August before they tell them if they make it or not. So she's asked that I don't name her name until she finds out if she's in or not. But either way, lots of Romulus students doing great things right now. I also, since I'm talking about music students doing great music things, wanted to give one more shout out to our valedictorian Darcel Davis, who's going to Wayne State to study music education next year. So 3 really great things from our graduates here in the music program.
Thank you, Ms. Ray.
Thank you guys for having me.
And congratulations to those students. And I'd like to add, I know that the board, for many years, we've talked about the importance of music and arts in our programs. And so one of the hits from the pandemic, our music programs have suffered because it was just different for students to participate virtually and still, have that same experience. And so I would encourage the board and also our staff as we set our programs and priorities to be mindful of our music program and be intentional and really focusing on our elementary so that we have that, we are bringing students up, we're exposing them to music and instruments at a young age and then growing our program. Because as we can see, Romulus High School has really exceptional graduates, and we don't want to lose our programs. We want to maintain and improve them and add more. So thank you very much, Ms. Race. Thank you for being with us tonight. Next on the agenda, we have a presentation for the virtual learning overview for the school year 2021-22, and Mr. Chris Parker will be presenting.
Do I need the microphone, or can you guys all hear me?
Yes, for those joining virtually.
Testing, testing,
Press and hold the button until it turns green.
testing. Testing. Oh, okay. Good evening, everybody. How you guys doing this evening? All right. So yeah, it is my task right now to give you guys an update on what we've been doing so far with the virtual learning program here at Romulus Community Schools. I want to start by thanking Dr. E and the cabinet for entrusting me with this awesome opportunity. Came as kind of a shock to me, but as I go in and as I learn more about it, it is an awesome opportunity for our students. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what we've come up with so far. Okay, first, a quick overview of the presentation tonight. It's pretty short, but I'm going to tell you guys everything that we've been doing so far. So I'm going to talk real briefly about the program content, the teaching or the instruction that's going to go on, the vision for that, the technology that we have lined up so far, and what we're going to do as far as technology, and then finally the operations, which is kind of the logistics and the way that things are going to go. So the vision here, this is kind of what we are.
I'm sorry, Ms. Parker.
Yeah.
Mr. Cooper, is there a way a screen can be turned so the board
you guys
is
can see
able
it?
to see the presentation? Thank you. Thank
Cool.
you. Apologize, Mr. Parker.
No problem. So the vision, this is kind of what we want to do. We want to build a high quality blended / online learning program to meet the needs of to meet the specific needs of all Romulus learners. I say blended / online. Online, blended, 2 totally different things, okay? Down the line, what I would like to see, like that's why it says vision there, is that we would have a blended program that meets the needs K-12, but really the blended piece fits very, very well for the secondary students. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to it. But right now, online, because of the specific needs and the specific desires of some of our families who have expressed that this is what they want. So quickly, some benefits of online learning. So these are just general benefits of online learning, but also I'm going to sort of tailor it to some of the things that I've seen as a building administrator, and then just some of the conversations that I've had with families and things like that up to this point. So again, currently meeting the needs, the current situation going on. Okay, you guys all know with the whole COVID thing, there are families that are just afraid to send their students back into the schools. So we've had I'm going to give you guys numbers at the end, the actual numbers of the parents that have expressed the interest. But I've talked to people. As a matter of fact, I've got a couple of folks who have contacted me and said, oh, you guys are doing online. I didn't know you were going to keep doing online. Well, I want to go ahead and send my kid back now because you're going to have that option. So it's definitely meeting the needs of those individuals that are just, once again, definitely afraid of sending students into the building due to COVID. We can improve our ability to personalize learning. Now, when I say personalized learning, I really, for a short presentation, I don't want to get too much into the different philosophies behind things, but for the K-5 students, for the elementary students, learning does not necessarily need to be that can't be that personalized. There's things that they need to learn how to do. I've never taught a child how to read. I'm a secondary educator, but I know that just the pool of knowledge that those young people need, there's certain things that have to go on at that K-5 level. When you start talking 6-8, if a student has a pretty solid foundation, and we're working on that, and we're doing some things, and you'll hear more about that as we get to them. But then we can start being a little bit more personal in our approaches. For the secondary students, the ability to personalize their learning is key because we've got, in all the years that I've been doing this, we've got some students who are way out here, way far advanced, doing really, really well. You guys know who they are. Jessica just talked about a few of them. But then we've got a lot of students that are, that need extra support, okay? So this is an option, and we'll talk more about it, where we can meet different needs for different students. So that's something that I was really excited about. Dr. E is real big on the 7 correlates of effective schools, and one of them is the opportunity to learn in time on task. And I can tell you that when we were forced into the online, we were forced into doing online learning this past year, I brag on the teachers at the middle school all the time, so I don't know, if any of them are watching right now, but they do an awesome job. And they took this online thing, and I believe we took it to another level. And the students that I saw, students who were, let's just say, disengaged, okay, pre-pandemic, were doing wonderful things online. They were engaged. They were in the IXL program. They were in the lessons that were being taught by the teachers, as well as the Edgenuity. So for some students, that's another one in just a second, but that opportunity to learn time on task really did wonders for some of our students, to be able to actually spend more time, to not be locked into that bell schedule, right? So they have to transition. That longer amount of time on task actually helped a lot of our students. We also have the ability to accelerate potential individual progress for individual students. What I would like to see is not only credit recovery, but initial credit. I would like to see at the secondary level, I believe they do it out in Ann Arbor. I talked to a young man in Ann Arbor, where you have students who, once again, are sort of more advanced students who can take online classes, maybe take an elective online that we may not offer here in Romulus Community Schools, but this could be something where, once again, those students who are doing really well can choose to push themselves in a more personalized fashion. We could extend the reach of our effective teachers. Again, I don't know what's happened in other buildings, but I've got some teachers right now that are chomping at the bit. And if you could see some of the work that they were doing to extend to more students, these individual teachers would definitely be a great thing. The teaching and learning conditions for some students, okay, for some students. As I said before, for some individual students, and you guys know as any time that you spend in education, some students do well in particular settings, some students do better in other settings. And just anecdotally, personally, from what I've seen, again, there were lots of students pre-pandemic who struggled in class, and I was shocked at the progress that a lot of these students made when they were able to go online and to be more, to take more ownership of their own learning. Again, the increase of the student and staff access to technology. Mr. Cooper has done a great job with providing us with technology, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then finally, engagement and motivation. So for some students, once again, the ability to personalize that learning, that increases that engagement and that motivation. So the program content. So again, this is still in the works, but this is what we have come up with thus far. So for the K-8 students, we are looking at the curriculum and instruction being aligned with district curriculum and instructional strategies and techniques. We are working right now district-wide with, I won't necessarily go into that, but we're working on instruction, in Tier 1 instruction district-wide. So the students in the K-8, like I said a little while ago, not necessarily so much individualized K-8. That's where we're building those foundations, that core knowledge. I'm really excited. I've got teachers that are really excited with what we're going to be doing K-8. So the students, as we kind of get through this pandemic thing, it's not going to last forever, they will have the opportunity to still take advantage of the K-8 curriculum that we're going to be working on district-wide. We're planning to operate it within the school calendars and within Bell schedules K-8. Assessment, same thing, district assessment. So the district common assessments, those are that's the way that we're going to assess the students' progress. The entry and exit procedure is going to be restricted because of staffing issues and logistic issues. We're not going to allow students to bounce in and out, just to elect to be online tomorrow, day after tomorrow, no, I don't want to be online. We're going to they have to make a commitment for at least a year if they're going to go into this program so that we can have continuity. It's hard to have a student bounce in and out and, bounce into a face-to-face class. It just doesn't work well like that. And then finally, the electives for the 6-8 students who are going to be delivered through Edgenuity with the support of our Romulus Community Schools teachers, our middle school teachers, the ones, and we haven't necessarily determined who they are yet, but that's the plan.
I'm sorry, Mr. Parker, did you say 6-8 will be Edgenuity?
6-8 electives.
Okay.
Electives. For 9-12, that's where it gets a little bit different. This is where we were talking about that more individualized curriculum for the secondary. This is where we are looking at Edgenuity. I'm going to, well, I don't know if I want to talk. I'd like to see us go maybe a different direction than Edgenuity. A lot of our kids seem to struggle with Edgenuity, but that's another conversation down the road. Right now, what we are using for our content is the Edgenuity, and it's going to be supported by Romulus teachers. So those students that are going through 9th grade through 12th grade, they will be using the Edgenuity, and they will have support from Romulus teachers. This is more individualized courses, individualized learning objectives, individualized assessment. So this is more personalized learning. This is not like the K-8 where everybody is kind of on the same lockstep page. As I said before, I'd like to see it as initial credit, meaning students coming in, taking classes for initial credit. And then we have a big need. I met with Renee Gowen and Mr. Petty today. We got a real big need of our students for credit recovery, for those students who are, have been in school for 4 years, but they're not seniors, right? They don't have the senior credit. This is a golden opportunity to set something up, and we were really excited just by the possibilities of offering this for our students because there's definitely a need there for the credit recovery, as well as the initial credit. Once again, as many of those students that we have that struggle, I work with them all. We've got a lot of them that are advanced, that just do a great job each and every day. The blended approach. This is where we would like to see like learning centers, RVLC. We have a beautiful RVLC wing down there where we could do, we talked about a 0 hour, a 7th hour. This is where, just pregnant with opportunities for students to be able to come in and get face-to-face work. I need a math teacher down there, a person that's certified in math, person that's certified in reading, science and social studies. I'm a social studies teacher and an ELA teacher, so I'm not knocking, ELA teachers, but we do need math, people with math skills down there so that when students come in, they can get that math support. That's just imperative. And then finally, as far as looking at the program content, I ran across national standards. There's national standards for quality online courses, and we'll be looking at that as far as program evaluation. That's why when I talked about Edgenuity, for example, if we need to, we're not married to anything. So if we need to do something different to fit our needs, I'd like to see us be able to do that. As far as the teaching is concerned, we are currently in the process of recruiting teachers, of getting the teachers. I've done a survey. I've had some decent response from the survey. I've had individual teachers, contacting me, hey, this is something that I'm interested in. So we are right now currently looking at bringing on special education teachers as well as certified content area teachers. The professional development that will take place, I'm really big on professional development. So we will definitely, as I said, K-8 and 9-12, the district professional development that we're going to be doing, that's coming up. So we've got a lot of time invested in the district professional development that we're going to be doing. So the online teachers will definitely be a part of that. And then whatever their building level PLCs are doing, so for the K-5 people, whatever's happening in their buildings, those PLCs will definitely be important. But I also, and how this is going to work, I'm not sure yet, but we need an online PLC so that we can, get together and we can collaborate and anything that's going on. So different things that, like techniques and strategies and so on and so forth for online teaching, we would be doing that as well. So as far as professional development, as far as collaboration, we want to see collaboration with our colleagues outside of online learning as well as within online learning. More with teaching. As far as evaluation, the district, so our online teachers will go through the same evaluation process as the district teachers, of course. I believe that's a union issue. We couldn't switch things up. The Charlotte Danielson rubric. Now we did at the middle school, well, as a matter of fact, district-wide, the Charlotte Danielson rubric, Charlotte Danielson highlighted some specific domains and specific elements for online learning. So for the online teachers, I will definitely be supporting them in those areas, the routines and the procedures, the engagement, the planning and that kind of thing. So we'll, not to say that we will not do parts of Danielson, but definitely there are pieces of it that are more that just kind of fit with online learning. And then as far as special education goes, I'm in consultation right now with Ms. Watkins and Ms. Rudolph with how that's going to work. We got to make sure that so right now, so far we've gone through and we know who all the special education, the students with IEPs are, okay? We're making sure, we got to make sure that we provide that FAPE, that legal, free and appropriate public education. We got to do that. So we are now contacting all of those parents and kind of talking to them like, hey, is this what you want? So those conversations, I'm not actually the one calling them, but special services are calling those parents and talking about just kind of seeing what's going on. But when we do when the rubber meets the road, we're going to be looking at making sure that they're meeting those goals and objectives, working on those goals and objectives, using the service logs, using the special education progress reports, and then through consultation hours. So again, this is something that we're really working on. I'm going to need to collaborate a lot with special services to make sure that we can do this particular piece because they're going to definitely need support at the elementary level, which is going to be different than the middle level, which is going to be different than the high school level. So that's something that I definitely am going to continue to collaborate and work on. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you again. I did not see a message that came through 20 minutes ago that there are people having trouble hearing our meeting. So anybody on YouTube who's having difficulty hearing, please go to our website and access the Google Meet link.
The Google Meet's not open to the public.
It's supposed to be.
I just did a text with somebody that said that they were hearing fine, I just need to make sure there's a microphone access.
Okay, yeah, so Google Meet is supposed to be an option going today and going forward. And, yeah, I received a text that that the meeting is difficult to hear. I'm sorry,
Oh, it's
again,
okay.
Mr. Parker,
It's
I
okay.
just, what you're giving is really good information, and I want to make
Yeah,
sure
no problem.
that it's being heard.
Okay, I can do it again. Okay, so again, so special ed, should I speak louder? Is that
Let's try.
okay? Or maybe like this?
Yes.
Louder like this? Oh, okay, it's feedback. Okay, so again, we were talking about the special education services and making sure that those students receive FAPE. And we are currently, right now, collaborating with special education, with the central office special education to make sure that that happens. So we're working on that right now. Okay, now my shifter's not working.
Sorry, I flipped off
There we go. Okay, technology. So currently, Mr. Cooper is working on securing some funds for additional technology for this program. So in our survey, we asked the families, how well does your technology work? What are you using for online learning? Do you have a sufficient internet connection and that kind of thing? So we are making sure that everyone has that first and foremost. Devices, internet connectivity, equipment for students, so we definitely want to make sure we provide that. This is it's sort of good because just recently we went one-to-one in the district. So this is not something that should be that difficult to do because we kind of got the computers and things, so technology is something we're kind of a little bit ahead on. Updated cameras. Dave is real excited about these cameras. We'll see how they work. Apparently the cameras are really nice as far as in the classrooms, where the teachers will have the ability to move around the classroom and that kind of thing, and the camera, following them. So particularly, I guess, with the K-8 people, science experiments, so on and so forth. So we'll have some nice enhanced technology for that aspect of it. And then as far as technology support, continuing, I think Dave and his department did a really good job with supporting us last year, and we will continue with the technology support in the same way. Okay, operations or logistics. So the facilities that we will be using, K-8, so existing classrooms. So however it shakes out as far as the elementary school teachers are concerned, we'll be using, classrooms. I have had questions from parents. Well, I want my child to be online because I'm not quite comfortable sending them back in school, but I also want them to be able to participate in elementary school things, whatever the elementary kids do. Of course, so again, I'm secondary, so I couldn't imagine that any of my elementary principal colleagues would say, well, no, Johnny can't come to popcorn or whatever, because no, they will be able to do that. I have not, and I'm just going on my relationships with those 4 individuals. So, I'm not really, speaking for them, but I've talked to a couple of parents, and the concern was that they wanted their children to be able to still participate in the things that elementary kids do. So yes, absolutely, we are looking to do that. So for the 9 through 12, we have the RVLC wing down there. And as I was saying to you guys a little earlier, I would love to see some sort of blended aspect, some sort of learning centers where students can come in, with a math teacher that is there to help them if they need some face-to-face, instruction. I think parents are, and again, this is just me talking, but kind of fearful of sending students into the building. And I'm sure there's extremes here and then extremes here, but maybe learning centers, perhaps people will be a little bit more comfortable with sending their child to a learning center with just a few kids there rather than in a big building full of students. So this is just sort of my vision of us having learning centers. With regard to counseling, we've got a meeting, well, Mr. Petty is going to be setting up a meeting. I'll be working with Mr. Henry. So as far as the counseling goes, of course, these children are going to need counseling support. They're going to need academic advising as far as counseling support is concerned. And then as far as that social emotional piece, that's going to be huge as well. And I know that Mrs. Hempstead, I know that Dr. Laws, Julie Herchard, a lot of people in the district worked really, really hard on a district-wide social emotional committee. And they did some great work. So I plan on, borrowing and stealing and, getting with them and seeing what we can do to make sure that the online students can access supports, however we can do that. Okay, and this is the current people that responded to the survey, the families that responded to the survey. So when I went through, when we closed the survey down, went through, and there were, interestingly, like 21 families from Wick, Rommel, and Hell Creek. So 21 from Wick, 21 from Rommel, 21 from Hell Creek, and there were 15 families from Barth that expressed interest. Middle school, 41 families expressed interest. And then high school, 72 families expressed interest. Yes.
Are these just responses to yes?
These are just responses to the survey that went out and lasted for about, I think it was on for like 2 or 3 weeks that survey was live.
What percentage do you see as a response? Roughly in the district, was it?
Of the whole
Just trying-
district?
Yeah, I'm just trying to
Oh,
look.
very-
and so,
very small.
Yeah, not even 10%.
Yeah, whole district. No, I
Yes.
wouldn't, very small.
That's typical.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Parker, when these represent families, do these families represent multiple students? Or is that a student count?
That's a good question. So there were, this is student count.
Thank you.
Student count, yes.
And do we have do we have any of this broken down by grade?
So with the elementary, and that's the only thing I didn't put on here, but we do, I do have that broken down as far as first grade. So as far as kindergarten, there was only like 5. But then the only thing I didn't put on here, and I should have put it on here, but like first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, there were, I want to say 20-something close, but I can get you those exact numbers.
Thank you.
Okay, and what questions might you have?
Yes, Mr. Rao?
Hi.
Do you have a mic? Yeah, maybe just stand by your chair.
Okay, thank you for such an awesome presentation. Really excited about this opportunity to allow community members to attend school with their own comfort level. And one, I have a couple questions. One is as far as hours of instructions. Are we still limited to a standard hour of instruction when it comes to virtual? Or are students, especially in the high school, allowed to get on and complete certain assignments outside of the normal school day?
So I'm kind of just talking, I know K-8, there's a certain amount of hours, however, whatever that number is. I wish Mr. Henry was here, he knows it off the top of his head, and I depend on him, but it's how many, so 10,000, whatever many hours, we had to make sure that our schedule fit that so that the students got that many hours. Now, with regard to the secondary students, Ms. Terrell, I don't want to officially answer that question. I know that there are blended programs. I know that the students are able to go through Edgenuity, and I know that they can do it on their own pace, and if they complete the Edgenuity classes, they get the credit. And I don't believe that they have to. As a matter of fact, I know that they don't have to be in first hour for 50 minutes a day or whatever. They just complete the classes for the credit. So I would definitely connect with Renee and find out a little bit more from Renee, and I'll get back with you on that one. But I do know with the K-8, they would be doing the required amount of hours.
And the last question I have is more so, and you may or may not have the answer to this, but more so related to how we have our students that are able to take courses at Wayne County Community College. Will this provide an opportunity to attend some of those classes online? Or is this part of the same thing, or am I just completely off?
That's a very good question. So you're talking about the early college students? Now, that's a good question. I don't know if any of the early college students have applied. We will be meeting with the counselors, I want to say next week, and that's something that I can definitely ask them. So as far as 11th graders, I had it broke down as far as how the 11th graders, but, and then there are no 9th graders in early college. So from, what is it, do they go in at 10th grade?
10.
So between 10 and 12, I don't know that we had any students that applied that are in early college. So that's a very good question. That's something that we would definitely have to address, because I'm sure that would affect that program. So definitely I will look into that as well.
Mr.
welcome.
Parker, do we have any students in grades 9 through 12 who are interested in CTE? And if so, are we able to accommodate them as being part of the CTE program?
Very good question. I did not put that on the survey, but I almost need something to write with so I can write these down. But that's another, very good question, because we didn't put that on the survey, so that's not something that I thought about.
Will they also be able to participate
I would-
in sports
You
at
mean
the
the
high school level?
Absolutely.
And middle school level?
They will be able to do everything. So really, we are providing, again, just as out of my mind, I'm providing this as something where they can go to school if they're afraid to come into the school. If the parent has a comfort level with sending them out there to the track or whatever to play, that doesn't concern.
And would we also allow middle school and high school students to come in for band if they are band students but want to limit
Yeah, I would.
in-person
I wouldn't
exposure?
get in their way. If you guys would be good with it, I
Yeah.
would. I wouldn't have a problem with it at all.
Ms. German?
Good evening, Mr. Parker.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for your thorough presentation. It's much appreciated.
You're welcome.
I do have a question in regards to our kindergarten through fifth grade students. Those students who are going to be participating in the online program, will they be able to get additional support? So we have students that, may have some learning gaps. Will they have some time, whether it's online, the teachers come online and support those students who have those learning gaps outside of the time that they have with their teachers altogether?
That's a very good question, Ms. German. At the secondary level, at our school, we did office hours, okay? So when we stopped doing office hours because of the 10,000, I almost want to call Mr. Henry, 10,000, however many hours they had, we had to readjust our schedule because to make sure that we have more instructional hours in that schedule. So we had office hours prior to that, and students really took advantage of that. So yes, I would definitely, that would be what I talked about, the online PLCs and working together, that would be where I would get those teachers, those middle school teachers, together with those elementary school teachers to show them how they did it. So absolutely, yes, that would be something that we would do.
One additional question. So our students who, and I agree with Ms. Terrell when she asked about, the schedule for our students. In regards to our younger students, will they have time where they're on screen time with their teachers, but doing asynchronous work, because the screen time can be damaging to their eyes or what have you?
So yep, that would again be in consultation with or in collaboration with those teachers. So yes, so synchronous time versus asynchronous time. Yeah, absolutely. So basically, are you saying with the K-8 crowd?
Yes.
Uh-huh, yeah, so, kind of help me understand, kind of rephrase your question a little bit.
So I'm thinking of course, kindergarten through fifth grade, but including the other grades as well. Just the amount of screen time being on the screen with their teachers' instruction. It being an 8-hour day for them could be very too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when I'm thinking about, the younger kids, will they have time where they have that time, with their teachers, but then they go off and do the asynchronous work, and that will complete their scheduled day.
Oh, yeah, very,
Okay.
absolutely, because we have that IXL as well. And, Dr. E is really big, on the IXL. And I've got to say, the IXL is wonderful. So that's an asynchronous time where they could be offline and they could be working on skills and so on and so forth. So again, that would just be in collaboration with myself and with the staff as to, okay, so what is your schedule going to be like? And then having those conversations to where, okay, so how much screen time is optimal? How much time do we want them to be asynchronous? So yeah, we would work that out. But thank you for that. That's something to think about.
Mr. Yes. I do.
You're doing an awesome job. I just wanted to add to with the K-5 as well. We've done this year as well, where when the students were on virtually, there were a lot of brain breaks. You take time away from the screen, you do some activities, you come back. Always we build that in terms of the level of where the student is at. We certainly don't want students on screen for 8 hours.
So to follow up with Ms. German's question real quick, when we talk about the breaks, so the students in the classroom would continue with curriculum work, and we have IXL, but IXL is more of a support and reinforcement for students to work it on their own. It's not a curriculum replacement.
Right.
So when they take breaks, will they have curriculum work that they will be doing as opposed to just like pushing them into an IXL and an honor system?
So I'm starting to understand a little bit better now. So yeah, that would be, so with regards, again, with that K-8 curriculum, it would be on us to do that. So I know that with the middle school right now, we are looking at core knowledge. We're looking at Amplify, core knowledge Amplify, and the teachers are very excited about that. I've met virtually with one of the consultants from Amplify, and he says that this curriculum is online. This curriculum is sort of tailored for online students. So again, that would just be up to the teacher in their planning to plan in that fashion. With regard to the K-5 students, we are still using the core knowledge. And again, that would be planning. So I'm gonna go back, so I didn't write anything down, but I can go back and look at this on like YouTube, right? I can see it. So I'll go back and make sure that I address all these questions. But yeah, in working with the teachers, if that's what we want to do, we want to make sure that, that they have asynchronous time and synchronous time. That's just a matter of planning. It's a matter of, going and making sure that that is intentionally planned, that it works like that.
Right, and if we can just have regular checkpoints where we're getting, data back from whether it's, the standardized testing or other forms, so the board is getting that back, so we're able to look at those students who are attending in person and those who are virtual to make sure that there is not a gap and that there's no disparity between the two groups. And regardless of what families choose for their child, it is equitable and excellent regardless of the delivery.
I agree 100%.
Mr. McNatt has been wanting to speak, so I will.
Actually, I think Mr. Cooper wanted to say something. I was
trying to help answer a question because it was about the secondary hours. The seat time waiver, okay, actually does cover that, where it eliminates the number of hours for that instruction right there. And when it came to the early college, in the past, it was actually on that early college, the actual college themselves, whether they determined if it was acceptable for them.
Ms. Kennard, do you have a question? Okay, Ms. Kennard needs the mic, please.
Just waiting my turn. But I want to say thank you very much for that awesome presentation. And it was very clear. And I'm quite sure as we move along in developing this, we will find out that there are more things that we can address. But I also would like to know that we should be very well aware, the Romulus Community School District, that we're one of the districts who is offering online. I've done my due diligence in the last since our last meeting and seeing who's out there, you know, who's our competition, okay? And that's some of the things that we as a board should be looking at and those in the system. And I found that there are districts who are not doing that, even far as even in Southfield and so on and so on, and having those conversations with those in education. And so being unique, you know, as a district where we're marketing, you know, and online learning, and I'm a big fan of that because, you know, looking at education at a higher level, you know, and attracting to a district, you know, we're looking at growth, enrollment growth and so on. This would be one of the areas where we definitely could use this type of education. And I'm not familiar with all these acronyms, so you're gonna have to tell me what PLC means. What is that?
Professional learning.
Okay, professional learning communities. Okay, thank you. So in your presentation, you mentioned that you are interviewing teachers, and so one of my questions were there any internal current teachers who are interested in teaching online, and if so, what was the type of criteria that they needed to be in order to do that, or was it just a lateral, or if they had their academics in that area, they could do that. So how was that handled, if at all, or if there was any interest at all?
So we haven't done any interviews yet. What we've done is a survey, and we have not looked outside at all. The teachers, I've like seen responses. I've seen names, awesome teachers. I put in the survey, in the sort of description that the students would receive online instruction from some of the best teachers in Romulus. There are people that I sort of have in mind right now but again, I'm going to be working with Dr. Laws, working with Ms. Hazlett on how we're going to actually make sure that it is an equitable, it's a above the board or whatever process as we bring these people on board. So no, we haven't looked outside the district or anything like that. Right now, it's just a survey, and I believe that I've got a meeting coming up in a couple of days with Ms. Hazlett and Mr. Petty as we start to look at that. So we haven't made any solid moves on that yet.
So we are going to have virtual teachers and face-to-face teachers?
Yes.
So at the elementary level, they will not be teaching both in the classroom?
The particular online teachers will not, no, they will not.
Okay, so the teachers that were teaching both with the cameras in the rooms last year, that will not be taking place this year?
No, we're not going to do that, no.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, they did a great job with it, though. I mean, they did. But, yeah, that was what we had to do. Ms. Piles, I wanted to address something that you said a minute ago with regard to data and sort of the progress monitoring piece. That definitely is very important as we are sort of making decisions, right? So I wanted to let you know that absolutely we'll be looking at, you know, how students are doing, how their achievement is going, and making decisions, based on that data. So absolutely.
Right, thank you. I have a few questions for you. You talked about in the middle school, grades 6 through 8, electives on Edgenuity. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what kind of electives does Edgenuity offer that we would be making available to our middle school students? And a follow-up to that is, when will our middle school students be aware of what is being offered? And I ask because as a parent of a middle school student, incoming middle school student, I've had other parents ask me, oh, when do we sign up, whether it's in person or virtual, when do we know what is being offered? So if you could speak to that, I know a lot of people are asking.
Okay, so I know I looked at just glanced at it briefly at the electives that are available on Edgenuity. I don't want to call on anybody to help me out here. I know they've got a health program. But, since I'm going out to the community, I do apologize. I'm not sure exactly what the classes are on Edgenuity because there's a whole list of them, a list of classes
Right.
that students can take. I know I saw like personal fitness and that kind of thing. So I will put something, so for those well, as far as when people are going to be knowing what's available for them, so the phone calls that we're making right now, we're in the process and we're telling people next steps. So we're telling them, okay, an application is going to be coming to you, very soon. And I do believe with those standards that I was talking about, so as we're moving forward, yes, I want to make sure that anyone that is interested in coming into the virtual learning program knows what they're going to be getting. So one of those standards said that for an online program, make sure that the course offerings and things like that are there. So as we move forward, that will be one of the things that I'll work on like this week to make sure that part of that application process is that families do know like what is available, particularly with the electives. When you're talking K-8, it's pretty straightforward.
Right.
But then when you start talking about the 9-12, as what Ms. Kennard was just saying, a vision that I have is that students would come from other places, right, to take some of these blended classes if we really get the program going, and that's what I'm intending to do. But again, with your question as far as the electives, I'll make sure that we start getting that information out to those parents that are interested ASAP.
Thank you. And I know we talked about the seat time waivers, and I know with RVLC, there is the seat time waiver. And of course, last year under the pandemic, we didn't have to report instructional hours. My question is going into this upcoming school year, the seat time waivers we know apply to RVLC students. Will they also apply to elementary students? Or is there still instructional hour mandates for elementary students who attend virtually?
To my knowledge, they're going to have to do the same things as the face-to-face,
Okay.
the face-to-face students, and that's how
Great.
we're planning.
Okay, so that's good to know. And even though the state gives seat time waivers for high school students attending virtually through RVLC, I'd like to know what Romulus Community School standard is. Are we going to have a certain standard for our high school students? Because, and I would, Mr. McNatt, if we could please even get an update as we get closer to the beginning of the school year on what our 9 through 12 program looks like. I like that you were talking about blended learning and doing personalized instruction on a secondary level. That, I mean, in my opinion, is basic. It's needed because we know that Edgenuity is designed to be credit recovery, and it is as standalone, it is subpar education compared to in-person instruction. So as we offer this to all 9th through 12th graders without a choice of face-to-face virtual learning, I want to make sure that we are supplementing that with something so that we're not just directing all of our 9th through 12th grade students into Edgenuity as a standalone educational offering. Because what we don't want is if students come back, there to be a huge gap between them and the peers in their class. We want to make sure that they are on grade level, and Edgenuity has its own shortcomings. So please let us know what that looks like, and even if we do in-person kind of supports, keep in mind that students are working at their own level. So if multiple students come in at their different levels, how do we approach that support? Are we hiring teacher aides, to kind of work with students in small groups, K through 12, or what does that look like?
That would be great. So right now, the way that it sort of looks in my brain is the learning centers, right? And the people that staff the learning centers. In my conversations with Renee, we were talking, adult ed. We were talking all of the supports that we could provide in the learning centers. So yes, if we are looking at hiring right now, I'm looking at making sure that there's a math teacher, you know, on board, that there's a reading teacher on board, and then a science teacher and a social studies teacher to help them in those classes. But as far as additional people are concerned, that would be something that I would definitely collaborate with Margaret for, because, yeah, the more people that we could have helping out, the better.
Right.
It would be great.
Right, as long, and I liked what you said, is we're going to design this to fit our needs. And our needs being defined as our student needs.
Absolutely.
And so that whatever choice our students select, they're getting excellent, a rigorous curriculum, they're getting high-quality instruction, and they're getting the supports they need to achieve those marks of excellence.
Absolutely.
So, and I think the last question I had for you is, in your slides, there was something about devices and internet connectivity for those who choose virtual instruction. I'm wondering, and Mr. Cooper, maybe you would know, what is the estimated price tag of that? And I know last year we did an entire district virtually, so now that we just have a subgroup, why would there be an increased cost, and approximately what is that?
This actually won't be an increased cost because it's part of the ECF funding that I mentioned a meeting or two ago, where part of the funding, where it follows the same guidelines as Title I. The government put out $7.1 billion to be used specifically for this. I'm hoping to put our application in. I'm waiting for one more quote on it, where we get up to $400 per device and up to $250 per internet. So I've already locked in our pricing for what we can provide the Wi-Fi internet for families, down to 2 different potential Chromebooks for students to go, where it would include, under the $400, it would be the license for it, the device itself, and actually even a warranty going home.
Great, thank you. So this is funding that will be secured specifically for this purpose.
It has to be.
That would not be, we wouldn't be able to utilize it for any other purpose other than this.
Correct.
That's great. Thank you. Do any other board members have questions? Ms. Kennard?
It's not really a question, but it's just a statement that I would hope that during the online that we're able to benchmark, you know, our students to make sure that they are receiving the type of learning that they should in the curriculum where they can meet state standards and testing. Okay, and so that's a concern. We want to make sure that they're able to sustain that, or, you know, come to the level during this curriculum, online curriculum, and not falling behind, and that they're able to compete and be successful.
Right.
I
and
wholeheartedly agree.
And I know that we had talked about, and you had stated that you guys will be doing the testing and the data. So I guess to Ms. Kennard, bringing that up again, if we could plan on having regular reports to the board. So we don't get to a semester and see a gap, but we're getting regular data on, you know, on what it looks like, because we want to know, because if we need to allocate more supports, we want to do that as soon and as readily as they're identified as needed.
Sure.
Ms. Evans?
As Ms. Kennard brought up, thank you very much for doing your due diligence and finding out that we're one of the few that are doing the virtual. Are we going to market that with the surrounding areas? Are we going to, what are we doing to market the ability for students to join Romulus and be virtual students, or even face-to-face? What marketing are we doing?
So I would say initially, social media. I would say, I guess I'm going to have to start working on our website and our Facebook, you know, Twitter, that kind of thing. Is that what you're talking about?
Outside of the district. I mean, our Facebook page, that gets to the families. Our social media gets to our families. What are we doing to expand our visibility in the surrounding areas? We're getting literature daily at our house for other surrounding areas. I have yet to see anything from Romulus. And I don't mean to put you on the spot.
I
but-
get it. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question.
So we'll work with the team, and what the board member is talking about is postcards and
Sure.
Facebook advertising outside of our district borders. So we'll work on that and we'll get back to you.
Mr. Parker, thank you. I mean, that was extensive, and I mean, and you fielded a lot of questions, so thank you for all of that.
I enjoyed it. I look forward to coming back to talk to you guys about the progress as we move forward.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine in nature by the Board of Education and will be acted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items. If any member of the board or citizen requests discussion of an item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will become the first item of business under the report of the interim superintendent portion of the agenda. A, the approval of the minutes of the Board of Education for the July 2nd, 2021 special meeting, the July 12th, 2021 regular meeting, the July 12th, 2021 closed session, the amended minutes from July 28th, 2020 special meeting, and amended minutes July 29th, 2020 regular meeting. I just want to state on the record, the minutes themselves are not being changed. On our website, there was a typo listing these meetings as taking place in 2021, so it's just that correction. B, the approval of the bills for payment as submitted by Interim Director of Finance Jewel Clare in the amount of $531,524.46. And finally, to approve the personnel actions as submitted by Human Resources Director Margaret Hazlett in its employment hires for 2021 summer school intensive program. And yes, so is there a motion and support to accept, approve the consent agenda?
Madam President, can I ask that item C be removed?
So, okay, so I will move that we accept the consent agenda as amended by removing item C from the consent agenda, and it will be the first item of discussion under the report of the interim superintendent. Is there support?
Support.
Okay, moved by Piles, supported by Evans. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The consent agenda has been approved with as amended. Next, we have public comment, agenda items only. Mr. Cooper, do we have any public comments? Seeing none, we will move to the report of the interim superintendent, Mr. Sean McNatt, and the first item for discussion will be the discussion of item C on the consent agenda. So, Ms. Evans, I will give you the floor.
Thank you, President Piles. I would just like to review the summer school hiring. How are these being paid? Is it through EduStaff? Are they all same pay scale?
So that would be a question for Ms. Hazlett or Ms. Claire, whoever would like to. Is there, we have a microphone here, Ms. Hazlett.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. With respect to the summer school hires, those are direct hires by Romulus Community Schools. The rate of pay if you're teaching, $40 per hour. The rate of pay if you're a paraeducator, $20 per hour. The rate of pay for a secretary working in the program, $25 an hour. And those are all supported through grant dollars for the summer school program. Right?
which is different from ESSER. It's a specific summer school. Is that correct? What we applied for that had to be submitted by April 15th, is it a different program, or is this from our ESSER funding?
Sorry, I don't recall.
Yeah.
We've done so many grants.
We have some of this in title, some of our title grants. We also have some of it in ESSER, and we have some of it in that risk too. So we've got a lot of grants covering that. The 23B, is the right letter, 23B money, we're going to get that in addition to this. So that's like literally on top of it.
Okay.
You get that money because they really want this to go on.
Okay. Ms. Hazlett, these are direct hires. Do we have any that were new RCS employees, or were these already existing staff members? Because direct hires would be eligible for benefits, correct?
No, so, sorry, I answered your last question first, I'm sorry. Let me start with your first question. So with respect to the positions that we're hiring, people that we're sending to you, these are new hires. So our current staff who are teaching in the program in a variety of ways, we've made those changes internally with respect to their pay for doing this. So what we're bringing to the board are those that we've hired directly for the summer school program, either to teach in the instructional program, to teach in the enrichment program, or to provide support as a paraprofessional. So some of these people that we were recruiting back in June were not going to be available until the third session or the middle of the second session. So in terms of our processing them and bringing them forward to you, that's why you're seeing more still coming at this point in time as we start our third session.
And there's a salary expense, are they also eligible for benefits?
These positions are not eligible for benefits.
Okay.
The secretary too for ROM-L, this is a permanent position.
Yes.
Okay, what about the Barth secretary position? Do we have any input on that? Any interest with that?
We are currently pursuing a candidate for that position.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Ms. Evans, were your questions answered?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, so then I move that the Board of Education approve the personnel actions as submitted by Human Resources Director Margaret Hazlett for our summer school intensive program new hires. Is there support? Support. Moved by Pyle, supported by Kennard. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. McNatt, the floor is yours.
So I'd like to talk to you about, No Kid Hungry out of Washington DC has a letter that they have sent us. They would like to recognize all that we've done for curbside pickup, home delivery, and classroom feeding over the last year. So there is a certificate that I will be giving to our food service director, our chef, and it says, I am a hunger hero. And so there's also a certificate to be presented to the Romulus Community Schools school nutrition team. So we'd just like to say thank you for going above and beyond. And I can tell you that I worked with the chef this week, not directly, but I had help from the team, Mr. Garland, as well as the transportation department, in making sure that some of our efforts this summer were met for our families as well. So,
And
thank
this
you.
And thank you for saying that. And I do want to bring it to the attention of the board and our community members. We had a situation that I became aware of Thursday, and I reached out to interim superintendent McNatt, and it was an instance where we weren't required to do it. It wasn't within our scope of what we offer, but yet the need was very big, and Mr. McNatt reached out to Bill Garland, who reached out to Lisa Hollis and Chef Parks, and just what happened that day. Thank you to all of you, but it is such a good feeling and an honor and a privilege to work and serve in a district with people who care about people and who are willing to go beyond what is required. And that is the thing that I pointed out, is it's not required, but if there's a way, and a group of people came together and took care of a very, very big need. And so thank you to all of you, thank you to your staff, and that is commendable.
And moving on, I just want to share under other that the Romulus Elementary School lost power yesterday, or was it this morning, I think? Yesterday, today.
They're out of power.
So anyways, they're going to be out of power. We're not expected to get the power back to sometime late tomorrow evening. And so at this time, we have announced through our system, with the help of Mr. Cooper, that the Romulus Elementary Summer School program will be closed tomorrow. So I just want everyone to know that as well. And then we have 2 things for action as well.
Right. So the first action item is for the GSRP subrecipient contract. The recommended motion, I will read, move that the Board of Education approve the Great Start Readiness Program subrecipient contract with Wayne Risa for the period of July 1, 2021, and continuing through June 30th, 2022, for total reimbursement not to exceed the amount of $911,412. The rationale is that it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the 2021-22 subrecipient contract with Wayne Risa for GSRP services at RCS. Wayne Risa will provide a maximum of $911,412 in 2021-22 fiscal year GSRP funds. There are 216 allotted slots. Is there support? Moved by Piles, supported by Kennard. Are there any questions from board members? Ms. German?
I think it's great that we're receiving this allocation from Wayne Risa. Does this include the additional funding for per pupil that they had shared that they were going to provide to GSRP? They added some additional funds per student that you all received.
Don't know, and Joel?
That's the allocation that Wayne Risa has given us right on that agreement. So if it is increased, it's on there.
So when was this agreement completed? Because I know it's something that was new and the governor has signed for it. I would definitely just double check because it could be more funds.
Right.
We'll come forward with a revised, but they revise the budget throughout the year sometimes, based on how many kids she ends up being able to get. And so we might have to come back anyways for the revised contract.
So is this the new funding that is dependent on having a certain number of students enrolled in GSRP?
I don't know the specifics of that particular program.
It's usually tied to the number of kids.
Yeah, it's tied to the kids, for sure. And it's, so if we get less, it would go down.
Right. Okay, so this motion is on the floor, but yes, if we can find out the number of students that are required to be enrolled to get the maximum amount, and then also a follow-up on how we are recruiting those students and making sure that we're not, that we're recruiting those students from another pool other than those incoming kindergartners with waivers.
This is based on 216 allocated spots. This
Okay.
particular agreement. So if we didn't get that many, our funding would go down.
Okay, do you know how many are currently enrolled in GSRP?
We can get you that number.
Mr. Garland, you know? Microphone for Mr. Garland.
Typically, they're full. But right now, with COVID, I don't think we're at our full capacity yet, so we can reach out to Diani, you got me saying it now, and find out. But typically, that building is at capacity. In fact, she's been asking us for another classroom. So it's got to be close.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
That makes sense. Bill would know the answer to that. You can ask us about another classroom.
Are we able to provide transportation to families for this? I know it may not be covered under grants, but is that something the district is able to consider to reach more families with early childhood resources?
Is it on? Okay. I know every time I say yes, or you guys flinch. So I think we could do something with ESSER to provide those services. So we could look into it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can you please look into, I'm sorry,
No,
Madam
you
President.
have the floor.
But can you please look into that with Wayne Risa, because they will provide busing if, they'll allow you to purchase a bus through the state. So contact Wayne Risa, and it's possible that you can get a bus for the GSRP students.
We had just purchased 8 last year, and we were reimbursed for all of them, which was amazing. But we can check into that. We can find out. We have an excellent contact at RISA who does excellent work with Diani. So we'll find out.
If there are no more questions, there's a motion on the floor to approve this. It was moved by Piles, supported by Kennard. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And then Mr. McNatt, I'm sorry, motion passes unanimously. Mr. McNatt, if you could just get those follow-up questions to the board, and then we can plan on stating them on the record at our next regular meeting, so our stakeholders know. Thank you. Next, we have our shared time contract, and I will just state that shared time is a program that came to the district 3 years ago. And what it is the students do not physically attend in Romulus, but we partner with financial solutions, school financial solutions, to help provide staffing and process payroll for teachers in private schools. And in exchange for that, there is a portion of the FTE. So this has been a good opportunity for Romulus Community Schools. Due to the pandemic, our enrollment has gone down with this particular program. A lot of families withdrew their students from private schools. However, this is a program that can continue to grow, and there is a neighboring district that jumped on this right in the beginning, and they bring significant revenue in through this program. So this is a beneficial program for us. We had a 3-year contract, and this is brought back for a 1-year renewal. So I will make the motion and move that the Board of Education approve the agreement with School Financial Solutions East LLC for shared time programs commencing on July 1, 2021 and ending on June 30th, 2022, and compensation at 8% of the gross full-time equivalent value. The rationale is the details that were provided in our packet. Is there support? Support. Moved by Piles, supported by Kennard. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda, we have the report of the Executive Director of Instruction. Dr. Laws, the floor is yours.
Time? There we are. All right, before we move forward with the action item that I put forward, I did want to give you some background information on the context of this item and kind of bring you back to when I first came to Romulus and the progression, and then why the recommendation for this professional development for the 21-22 school year. So when I first came to Romulus, I started with talking about a vision for curriculum. Many of you weren't necessarily in my interview, but I know President Piles was in the interview session where I talked a lot about how you establish a vision for curriculum and the components that are required to be part of a viable curriculum. And there's three major components that you must have to ensure that you have a viable curriculum for students. And those three have to work together. You have your instructional strategies and classroom environment, you have assessment, and you have written curriculum and standards. And all three of those work together in concert, but you don't always work on all three at the same time. You work on specific areas at different times depending on the needs of your students and your teachers and your student assessment needs. All of these three, though, need to be in place. And in looking at where you can have the biggest impact with student achievement at the fastest rate possible, which is really critical for us because we know that we have a lot of learning loss, and we've seen that in general our scores have not been where we would like them to be in the last 5-6 years. And so where do you start with any one of these three areas? You can start on any of them. We've been working on assessment as a district, and we have lots of great assessment in place. We have standards that teachers and principals have been working on and know that we need to do more with that. But instructional strategies in the classroom is where you can ultimately have the biggest impact in the shortest amount of time. Hence why we need to really start to look at focusing on what is happening in the classroom on a day-to-day basis. So there we go there. So one of the things when you look at effective instruction and learning strategies, there's been a lot of research, but the best research that's been compiled is by John Hattie. And John Hattie did a meta-analysis of over, I believe it was 900 studies worldwide. I may be wrong about that number. I think it's in my packet that I gave you when I looked at it. Oh, 95,000. Right. So that's more than 900. I knew the 9 was sticking in my head. But he did worldwide research, a meta-analysis of research that showed what the best strategies were and the effect size of various things that we do as educators. And so through those strategies and through that research, he coined what's called visible learning. When we look at those strategies that are in what we call the zone of desired effects. And I don't know if my point, if I go like, there we go. So if we look at the zone of desired effects, so anything that we do or things we don't do can affect student achievement. There are things such as retention, environmental factors that can actually have a negative effect, and those are in the red zone. And then there are those things, what students could achieve without schooling. So those are just the natural things that are going to happen even if they never went to school. And so those tend to be in the 0.15 effect size. And then typical effects of teachers on students that can be accomplished in a year of teaching is 0.15 to 0.4. So this is if we just kind of went along and did the same thing that we're always doing, you always can expect about a year's growth for the types of things that we do. But there are what there was called the zone of desired effects. Those are those strategies and actions that when you do those, they have the greatest impact on student achievement. And the higher you go to the right, those strategies that fall in the 1.0, 1.1 are then 2 years worth of achievement and so on. So you want to identify and conduct strategies in that highest zone of effects. That is where you're going to get the biggest bang for the time that you spend in the classroom, irregardless of what book you read, irregardless of what curriculum you use. When you implement these strategies, then you have the highest possibility of doubling your effect size on your student achievement. And so that research and that concept is coined visible learning by John Hattie. When I first came to the district, I talked about those areas when I had the opportunity to meet with teachers, to meet with administrators about what were the areas of greatest need. We talked about several. We talked about lack of systems, disjointed curriculum, a plethora of initiatives, standards to drive instruction, multi-tiered systems of sport, and school marketing. And in all of these, we talked about, well, where do we start? What are the priorities? And so, if you recall, for those of you who are here, I did a presentation talking about how we need to establish an instructional leadership team that focuses on instruction. And we've done that. We've created an instructional leadership team. Every school has an instructional leadership team composed of teacher leaders and their administrator. They've already participated in some professional development around Tier 1 instruction, because as we investigate, what we find is that our Tier 1 instruction, again, the Tier 1 and visible learning, those top strategies is where we need to focus, because that's 80% of your students. You should be providing solid Tier 1 instruction for at least 80% of your students. And then you provide that additional supports for those outside of that. But we have students where, based on scores, 90% would need additional support because our Tier 1 instruction needs to be stronger. And so really looking again, how do we identify those strongest Tier 1 strategies that research has shown has the greatest impact in the shortest amount of time? And those are the ones that are identified, like I said, through John Hattie's visible learning research. In my experience, I've been in education for 25, 26 years. It's the strongest I have seen of anything that can impact student achievement in terms of instruction is really focusing on those top instructional strategies. And so when you look at visible learning and really where you focus, these are some of the key areas that we need to focus on and work together on, and that's part of this proposal of our professional development for the upcoming school year, is to establish, first of all, a common language around learner disposition. So what does it mean to be a learner? If you ask a student, oftentimes you say, what does it mean to be a good learner? They'll say, well, sit still, listen. That's behavior. So we have to help our students understand, just by having a specific learner dispositions, perseverance, curiosity, those types of things. So having a common language about what it means to be a strong learner is one of the aspects of visible learning. Other key aspects are things like teacher clarity, so being very clear about what you're teaching, how it aligns to the standards, and using things like learning targets and success criteria, but doing them consistently from classroom to classroom so everyone has a clear understanding of what that looks like. And then feedback is one of those top effect size instructional strategies and how you give that feedback. So training on, you can just say feedback, oh, you know, it's more than saying like good job, but really learning how to provide specific feedback, learning how to provide feedback as a peer to one another. There's all kinds of aspects about feedback. And then of course, assessment. And we talk about assessment capable learners. I, as a learner, know how to also assess myself, where I am in the process. That has been shown, that is one of the highest effect sizes if I, as the learner, can tell you where I'm at and how I've grown in my own learning. So those are key things that the Visible Learning Tier 1 would focus on this upcoming year. And then developing, as part of that PD, developing instructional practices that create consistent learning environments that support student learning. And then additionally, one of the aspects of this program this year, especially that we want to look at, is doing what's called a school capability assessment, because every school in the district is not in the same place. When it comes to Tier 1 instruction, they're at different places with some of these things. So by doing a school capability assessment, we really get kind of a deep dive in where is each individual school at, so that you develop a specific plan related to where we focus their needs in terms of the teacher professional development. So there are some things that everybody will do, but then there are areas where you can start to focus on depending on where the school is at, and it gives the principal and the instructional leadership team a really good overview of where are we as a school in the grand scheme of Tier 1 instruction. And then once they do that assessment, then they really start to gather evidence and develop a plan for specific actions related to Tier 1 practices in each school. So that's kind of an overview of what you also have in your packet, but I just wanted to touch on how all of this kind of comes together from, you know, what we've been talking about during the previous school year till moving into next school year.
Thank you very much, Dr. Laus. That's exciting stuff. It really is. Do you see, like, as we talk about this, the practical application and monitoring of it being applied K-12, whether in person or virtual?
Absolutely. I think Mr. Parker touched on it just a little bit when he talked about the work that we've been doing as a district. Absolutely. And that's why it's so important that we want those online teachers to be part of their professional PLC, professional learning community, because they need to be a part of this same instruction. Those instructional strategies, those top instructional strategies, it doesn't matter if they're online or in person, those are the ones that are going to have the highest effect size. And so every teacher in the district, K-12, needs to be a part of that professional development to understand those practices.
Thank you. Will you, please, I invite you, encourage you, welcome you, we need you to give us periodic updates on this, what's working, what's not, and let the board know what is needed from us to support you, to support the staff in our buildings, to support our students, because we don't want to just go through the motions of doing things. We want to measure the impact and be able to make adjustments where they're needed. But we are glad to have you here, Dr. Laus, and just with, you know, the research that you use and the vision that you bring to Romulus is very much needed. And you do a lot. I'm not going to pretend to know how much you do, but I do want to communicate on behalf of the board that we are absolutely here to support you and our building administrators. So please let us know what support you need and how we need to effectively allocate resources, because this is one of the ways we can profoundly impact the lives of students in this district. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, it is.
Madam
I believe
President?
that.
Yes, Ms. German?
Okay, so Dr. Laus, you did a wonderful job with your presentation, and I'm telling you that the district is not alone in our efforts in regards to that Tier 1 instruction. And so when we talk about the Tier 1 and you talk about assessments, what assessments are you using? Are you going through and using MyStar DNA?
So we actually just finished putting up for the first time ever, myself, the data coach, really, it was his baby, and putting together the assessment calendar for the year. But we have a multitude of assessments. So of course we use NWA 3 times a year, fall, spring, and winter. I mean, fall, winter, spring. Then depending on the level, we have certain assessments that we use for kindergarten through second grade for reading and being in line with the third grade reading law. We are actually looking at changing or adding a new assessment called Acadience, specifically for reading. It's a free assessment. The tool is free. There's PD involved with it, but it's it's amazing the feedback that it gives about students' reading abilities. It's one of the best ones we've seen out there in a while, so we're looking at that. We actually had some piloting of it with some summer school students. So we use that. Then, of course, we have our, within the school year, depending on the grade level, you have your DNA Illuminate assessments. We use the Illuminate assessment bank to build those assessments. And there's some work to be done, though, around common assessments. That's part of, you know, some of the other steps that need to happen with the standards alignment and those common assessments, I would say, especially at the high school level and middle school level. And then, of course, we have our state assessments. I know I'm probably missing some. I should have brought my calendar. But we have a lot of assessments that we do. Of course, then with special ed, they have certain assessments, too, and benchmarking that they utilize as well, too.
Well, I definitely have to agree with President Powell. You're doing a tremendous job in just getting us all on board. Visible learning is very hard to explain, so you did a wonderful
Yes.
job with just in a couple of minutes explaining
Yes.
in a nutshell. So thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Laws, one thing that, well, now Superintendent Dr. DeVita Colbert stated, and I would like to draw attention that we have a new superintendent at RISA, Dr. Colbert. She is phenomenal.
She
She
is.
was previously the
I know her.
the associate superintendent for educational services. So and which is a passion of her heart, which is even better. It's much more than a career choice. But one of the things she had reported in a RISA board meeting is that RISA is supporting local districts with the return to learn legislation benchmark assessment data, what the new reporting requirements are. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but as we've gone through that transition at a future meeting, would you please let us know like what those benchmark reporting requirements are, and specifically like, and this is like, what do you need from us? Like this, we want to support you. I mean, we support our students, and that's done through the curriculum that we offer. So if we can get an update on what that new legislation is, that would be beneficial. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no other questions, we can vote on the motion on the floor. All in favor? Say, yes, it was. It was moved by Piles, supported by Kennard. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Dr. Laws. Next, we have a report of the Interim Director of Finance, Ms. Jewel Clare. I believe we moved it. I'm so sorry. I marked that off mistakenly. Ms. Clare, it's on the new agenda. I apologize. Next on the agenda, we have the report of the Director of Human Resources, Ms. Hazlett.
Good evening again. So I think what we have before you is a motion to approve the employment contracts for the other non-bargaining support staff in central office. And I apologize to you. I think I had a misunderstanding about how these positions in these contracts worked. So we're bringing forward them to you now for your approval.
So I will make a motion, and then if there's any questions, I move that the Board of Education approve the employment contracts for the 2021-2022 school year for the following central office staff positions. Jumana Kadri, accounts receivable. Okay, I'll finish. Sarah Khan, accounts payable / bookkeeper. Stephen Baker, accountant. LaTroya Weston, administrative assistant for special services. Cynthia Morrison, executive assistant for instructional services. And Paula Gutzman, executive assistant for the superintendent. Is there support? Was that Terrell? Moved by Piles, supported by Terrell. Ms. Hazlett, I do have a question as I read this. So Jumana was doing accounts payable. Has that been moved over to Sarah?
No, I think it's a clerical error.
Okay, so
Jumana is still doing accounts payable, and Sarah does accounts receivable and bookkeeping.
They're backwards, correct?
Right.
okay. All right. So my question on that, so Sarah Khan, when she was hired, it was our understanding that she was either going to do bookkeeping or accounts receivable. So when did she start assuming both of those responsibilities? Is that new for this contract?
No, we really doing accounts receivable would not be a full-time job because we just don't have that many cash receipts to
Okay.
make that a full-time job.
And Ms. Morrison, I know we approved her contract when she was a new hire. Has that contract changed?
No, it hasn't.
Okay, so,
I'm just trying to be thorough and make sure I had everybody
so
on there.
we have approved that. So I will actually make a motion to amend the motion, removing Ms. Morrison's contract from this, since we have already approved her contract. Is there a second to amend the motion?
When was her, can I ask a question? When was her contract created and approved?
We approved it at a board meeting in June,
June.
I believe. So it has been approved by the board. Is there support to amend the motion? Moved by Piles to amend the motion to remove Cynthia Morrison's approval, or contract approval from this. Moved by Piles, supported by Kennard. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the motion is now amended. Are there any other board questions?
Madam President, I do have a question. In
Yes.
regards to Sarah Khan, we're adding bookkeeping on because accounts receivable is not a full-time job? Is that what we're saying?
So what we're saying with respect to, that I inverted the job titles there in terms of putting the motion together this afternoon. So no, our accounts receivable person is not a full-time position, but also provides support to the operations manager. And there are hundreds of POs that have to be entered in for all of the sinking fund work, all of the capital expansions, all of those things. So that position also provides that support to the operations area.
And my question is, do we have an administrative assistant to that operations?
We do not
position?
have a standalone position that's an administrative assistant just to the operations manager, but our accounts receivable person does provide that support in terms of the POs, generating all of the POs.
And so we could not, and I'm only looking at the cost involved in this. Outside of the POs, is there no one else that would be able to support in that area as opposed to creating a position, a full-time position for someone else?
So these were the positions that we had staffed in the finance department before. And when we looked at those things and recognized what the volume of POs that were required in the operations area, we recognized that we needed to keep that position as a full-time position, providing that support. Not enough work there, we thought, for 100% administrative assistant to the operations manager, but certainly half-time support there and half-time support for accounts receivables.
So I know when we originally approved Ms. Khan's contract, she was hired as a bookkeeper, and accounts receivable was a function under the accountant. When did that change?
Okay.
And did it change because the accountant took on new responsibilities?
When Sarah was hired, it was during the time when the bank reconciliations were about 10 months behind. So that was her focus, reconciling those. And then after that was caught up, it wasn't as, the volume, just keeping it up is not as much. So she does she enters all the cash receipts, and she does all the journal entries. She enters all the journal entries. And Stephen does all the draws, the accountant, he does all the draws on the bank, on the grants for me. He draws the funds down, and he does governmental reporting, Medicaid. I could make a list
Sure.
of all of them.
No,
He does
that's-
all the reporting to the government that's required by our office.
Okay. So I know we received these contracts, and when I saw them, I just noticed that the format of the contract had changed. But my question is, are there raises built into these contracts? If so, is it a standard percentage or is it different per position, and how was that determined?
So the raises for these positions are 2%, which is in line with the other increases that we've done for other positions or other contracted union positions as well. And this was planned for as we put the budget together for the 21-22 year.
You're saying that they're 2% for Khan and Cadre?
For all of the employees listed there, with the exception of one, any increases that we gave to employees was a 2%.
Give me a minute.
Are there any other questions? Well, Ms. Hazlett, do you have like a side-by-side with the previous salaries and the current salaries? Do you happen to have that?
I can certainly provide that. No, I do not have that with me.
Okay. It's what? What's 4%? Okay, so if we could get that information prior to voting, just because I know like these salaries that were set are budgetary, and if there is a discrepancy on the percentages and they're not consistent, I would feel better voting when we have that information and all board members have had time to review that. So, and I don't know how other board members feel, but,
What's the discrepancy right now?
okay, hang on 1 minute.
Remember, Khan wasn't here the full year, so you don't take her partial contract and go to the full and count that as a.
Right. So I want to direct a question to board members. I know that this motion was added today when I noticed that these contracts had not yet been approved by the board. Have all board members had time to review the old and new contracts prior to tonight's meeting?
No, we didn't.
Ms. Terrell, Mr. Bergeron, have you had time to review the old and new?
I did, but I just would like to know what the discrepancy is tonight, because, you know, this has been brought up a couple times, and.
This is actually the first time this has come up.
Pardon me?
This is the first time.
First time these salaries have ever brought
Yes.
up, and these positions have
Yes.
been brought up?
Yes.
These aren't, central office?
No, we already approved the directors. These are new. These are new. We just received.
Accounts receivables in the high school then?
No, so this is central office. We received contracts last week, and that's when I noticed that they were new contracts. So no, this is the first time the board has discussed this. So, and if there is a discrepancy in the, it's not that we're not approving the contracts, it's that there may be a need for board members to review all information or request additional information. Is that the desire of the board?
I received this list at the end of May, early June, with dollar figures associated to each position that was available at the time. I'm showing 4% increases from this to what is now their new raise, and I'm being told it's 2%. So I'm just trying to get my hands around, or my mind set to what our costs are at central office. It's, and if this is the dollar figure, that's one thing. If it's supposed to be a 2%, it's another thing.
And it's incorrect, and, okay,
Right.
so, based on ranking, I would like to make a superseding motion that we postpone voting on this motion until our next regular board meeting when we've had time to review those salaries and information. Is there support?
What were you saying? I'm sorry.
I said that based on the ranking of motions, I would like to make a superseding motion that we table, we postpone voting on this action item until our next regular meeting, when all board members have been able to review the contracts and get the requested information and be more informed when we vote. Okay, so moved by Piles, supported by German. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, so Madam Secretary, would you please do a roll call vote for this, please?
Terrell? German?
Yes.
Kennard? Piles?
Yes.
Bergeron?
No.
Evans, yes.
Okay, so, yes, hang on 1 minute. Let me just state for the record, the motion to postpone voting on these central office support staff contracts has been postponed until our next regular board meeting, so that board members have time to review the new contracts and also be provided with a side-by-side spreadsheet of old salaries and new salaries. New proposed salaries. Ms. Kennard? Do you need a mic?
Thank you. I just want to say that the reasoning, for my vote is because I think whenever there's something in question, we want to try to be a consensus board. A consensus board. That means if we need clarification or a greater understanding, we should allow that. I'm not saying that I'm trying to persuade anyone to change their vote, but I'm just thinking that, for me, I would like to see my prospective board member, having a clear understanding of what they're voting for. We're not saying we're against. I'm not saying I'm against. I just want clarification to let our administration know that from me, this one vote here, is that I feel that if it's not clear, okay, we want to know what we're talking about, we want to know what we're voting on, so that when we're taking things forward, our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. For me, I can't speak for any other board member, but I think we should strive, as a board to be a consensus board on some matters. And so that's why I voted the way that I did. Not to say no, or to just say, to get a board split vote or whatever, but to say that I owe my fellow board member that opportunity, okay, to get clarification. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kennard. So this will be on our August 10th agenda, and as Ms. Kennard was talking, I just realized that, so these contracts have not yet been approved by the board, so pay should be issued at the contract that has been approved, because these amounts have not yet been approved.
We are in, may I speak?
Yes.
We are in next school year. Those contracts are being, am I correct? Those contracts are being executed, have been executed already at the new salary rate,
Of course they have, but again,
just so you're aware.
I'm aware of that, but here's the thing is they should not have been executed at a rate that had not been approved by the board. And so every meeting, we are coming back to all contracts require board approval. It is budgetary, and now we're not even sure, is everybody getting the same percent increase? Is it varying? So we can't commit to a haphazard decision just because we already did. The contracts are not yet binding, so all of this should have come to the board prior to July 1. And it didn't, So now we have to do the next best thing, and we cannot continue paying out a contract at a rate that the board has not yet approved.
And I understand what you're saying. I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that these people are being paid. And so tomorrow, I'm to go talk to each one and tell them that you're not making X, you're making X minus. You're basically making what you did last year. And are you docking them for the last couple of weeks? 'Cause they were paid over on this contract?
So we have no new contract. So how that gets handled, I mean, and the board, board members can weigh in, but we do not have approved contracts for any higher rates. So can amounts be set and arbitrarily take effect on July 1? I would think no, I would hope no, or things could just be changed without board knowledge. I mean, we wouldn't
Right.
have even been aware of this had I not requested all central office contracts
Right.
just last week. So this could have gone
They
on
said today.
2 months or 3 months so no, we need to get back to just a framework of functioning where we protect the fidelity of our processes and the board is doing their duties and administrators are doing theirs. And this is a very uncomfortable situation because, no, I mean, I hate that employees will be told, oh, you thought you were making this, but you're making less than that. But the solution isn't, oh, we circumvented the board again, so we're just gonna keep paying you what has not yet been approved. That's not an answer.
Madam President, may I please?
Yes.
The reason I voted no is
Can you-
because of exactly what's taking place right now. We have
Can you
employees
put your,
we have employees that are working. They're doing a job for the district. If there's information that board members need to review and come back to next week, how is it that what the actions that we're taking here at this table, if someone is employed and expecting a certain amount of income to come in as a result of their working, and because we haven't been informed or a board member feels like they need more additional time, it should not impact Romulus Community School employees. My personal opinion is let them receive what they've been receiving. We will readdress it again at the next board meeting. But there's no reason to say that our superintendent has to go to these individuals and say, what you received is wrong. We're going to take it back now. Gaining an understanding of what we're paying, whether or not it's 2% or 4%. It's been discussed with these employees. They're receiving it. And that is just not, it is uncomfortable, but it's not right. We should do what's right. That's why I voted no. We should do what is right and treat everybody. I wouldn't know, I tell you, I wouldn't know what to say if someone came to me and it creates dissension, division, it tears down morale. Everyone is going to be talking about that. Mm-hmm. They come to work and they're going to be tapped to say, oh, because a decision was made at the board table, we have to take you down and maybe we'll bring you back up again. That's just not right. Let's do what's right.
Ms. Kennard? Put the mic by your mouth.
Yeah, Madam President.
Yes.
I need to ask, maybe it's one of the administrators, how many weeks, how long have they been into this contract in terms of with the new salary?
26 days. 26 days.
Is that 2 pay periods?
So that's 2 pay periods, they have received the new rate? Okay. And Jewel, you can help me out on this as a financial professional, okay? In some instances I've been in where this has happened, okay? And so it's how the administration chooses to address the issue until the board comes back together. And board, we don't necessarily have to wait the 2 weeks. Okay, we could do special
do a
meeting
special
or something
meeting.
like, of that magnitude to ensure that by the next time that when is the next pay period? This Friday? By Wednesday? Okay, so the next couple of days, review the documents. In most incidences, when you have situations like this, it is retroactive. You don't necessarily, I mean, it's the language and it's how it's presented to the employee, looking at it from a budgetary perspective.
Right.
But we as a board, we need to expeditiously, review this
Yes.
and answer those questions so that it doesn't affect our employees, because we do not want them to be devalued. We do not want them to feel that we are looking at this situation in any other derogatory way. We're just looking at dotting our I's and crossing our T's. It's unfortunate, I feel it's unfortunate that we're having to sit here at this moment and having to have this type of discussion. I'm hoping moving forward that we don't, okay? That we all come together and we know what we should be doing as administration as well as the board. Okay, so what I'm suggesting is that as a board, that we do not take that length of time to make a decision to review the documents, that we're talking in the next day or two, before Tuesday, so that our administrators can have the adequate time, take the night, review the documents, okay, if that's so desired. Because we do not want this to be lingering on, and we don't want any extenuating circumstances where it is a disservice to our administrators as
Right.
well as our employees, because they're very valuable to this district.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And thank you for that point, because our contracts, whenever they are approved, the contracts begin on July 1st. So there is no loss of compensation because it is retro. And thank you for pointing that out, because actually we have a study session set for Wednesday evening, but we can change that to a special meeting. And if it's a special meeting, then we are able to have an action item. So we can approve these contracts Wednesday night. Our study session can be a special meeting so that we will have that one action item on there. And the other thing is, just so we're aware, let's say that the average salary that we're talking about is approximately $50,000 and 2% on that. So we're talking about, and that is spread out over, how many pay periods, 23, 26. So we're not talking about significant impacts, and that's neither here nor there, but I just did want to state that. And nobody will lose money. We go back to July 1st, but if contracts aren't binding until the board approves them, then we are obligated to approve these. Ms. German, did you?
Thank you. May I?
Yes.
So with this, and I understand what you're saying, that you want to be responsible with the allocations and so forth. And I want to ask a question for Ms. Jewell. When will payroll be done for Friday's deposit? What time of day? Noon on Wednesday. Noon on Wednesday, so Thursday at the latest, but noon on Wednesday typically. So what I'm going to ask the board, is it possible for your consideration tonight that we allow this to go through for this Friday? And if after you have the meeting on Wednesday, Thursday, the next time you have that meeting, because I'm not sure there's enough information if you will have all the information by then. Is it possible that we go ahead and we allow the payroll to extend to this check, and then we have a meeting so that we are not worrying the staff, and we would also give them time for any reduction that would be coming later on?
Well, okay, so there won't be a reduction because our contracts go back to July 1st. So, and again, the effective date is July 1. Now, we want to make sure that there's a standard that's being adhered to for whatever the raises are. So if it's 2% and these are accidentally being paid at 4%, then yes, there would be a small discrepancy. But again, that amount, spread out over all those paychecks, it wouldn't be significant per paycheck. But what we have here is the data is already there. We just need it sent to the board. And we're talking about five employees. So, Jewel, if we meet on Wednesday night and we approve this, will you be able to process these 5 employees on Thursday for Friday's payroll? Okay. So we can move on this on Wednesday night and nobody loses, it still gets processed for Friday's payroll.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say, in regards to all of this, I think we're missing the big picture. The biggest concern is that we should be notified accordingly. July 1st, we push right before that day or on that day, we push the high school, principal, coming into a contract. But then all of these 5 individuals who we're looking at tonight should have been pushed through at that time as well. And so my concern is that we're not moving in the right direction, or we feel as a board, and I'm speaking for myself, I should say myself, it puts us in an uncomfortable situation, not being informed, but then later being informed and then having to come and, talk about accountability and what we should do moving forward. So I just think that transparency is so important. I don't like being in a situation where we have to make decisions that, you may feel as administrators that we're not supporting you. But at the end of the day, we really just want to we want you to be transparent so that we can make these decisions and be in support of what we're doing.
Madam President, may I speak?
Yes.
Or did you want to say something?
On July 12th, when we had our meeting, our regular meeting, it was stated that no contracts are to be put in place until the board approves them. Okay, some of these are signed this week. Some of them are signed last week. It was a motion that those things don't happen. And again, we're being told, you just have to vote for this because it's already in place, which is not it's not good practice.
May I share some things?
Sure.
Thank you. So when I made the presentation in June regarding the cabinet level contracts and the superintendent contract and the interim superintendent contract and the high school principal, when I was talking about the cabinet contracts, I was also sharing with you that we also included an increase for the central office staff, not just the cabinet level members. So let me take you back a little bit, and then, absolutely, we want to do a better job about this going forward because we don't want to put you in this situation. But at the time when I was working with Dr. Edmondson, we had a whole plan. So we started with our labor agreements, and we wanted to get those settled. And if we could get a multi-year agreement, great, because having calendar for more than 1 year helps us with marketing in terms of attracting students. So that was our first goal, was to get those contracts settled. And then once we got our labor agreement settled, the next phase was to address central office. So as you may recall, and I still feel I need to do a presentation for you, with respect to where the pay was at the time, we had 4 different scales, some of them different steps, multiple kinds of steps and ranges. And so to try to rectify that, then we put together salary ranges for the positions, grouping them based on what their scope of responsibilities were. That was all part of that process to bring some consistency there. And you may recall that I also shared with you at the time that we also had inconsistency with the kinds of contracts that were being issued. We had tenure language in there for positions that would not be eligible for tenure, for example. And we had different amounts of sick leave and rollover, vacation rollover. So And again, it didn't seem to be any pattern with respect to scope of responsibilities. So someone with a greater level of a scope of responsibility, for instance, a cabinet member, couldn't roll over any vacation time, but maybe an administrative assistant position could. Is that okay? Well, as long as we're consistent, you know, but if another cabinet member can roll over time and another administrative assistant can't, we got some problems. And so that's really what we were trying to do, is try to rectify all of that and bring that together. And I do apologize, it was my understanding at the time back in May that positions, cabinet level positions, required board approval. I was accustomed to that, happening in other school districts where I worked. But when it came to the central office support staff, those positions did not require board approval. So I apologize for my misunderstanding about that, and I did start issuing those contracts that last week of June, trying to hit the July 1 date and try to catch people to come and sign and explain what was going on and those kinds of things, because there were some changes to vacation rollover time, for example, or how your sick leave was going to be accumulated. And then we started working on an employee handbook for the non-bargaining group, because there are many other issues that those contracts didn't address. For example, what happens if you're called for jury duty? You know, what if there's bereavement or funeral leave? Because those contracts did not address those things. So in trying to rectify all of that and put some systems in place and be consistent, put things into a handbook, which isn't done yet, you know, I'm still working on that. It was my misunderstanding, I thought, that in terms of talking with those positions and those raises with the cabinet contracts, that would have been the place to ask the questions, or to, you know, pull and say, whoa, you know, we need another step here. So I do apologize to you, you know, going forward. Of course, you know, we'll take those actions. I think maybe that motion came after Ms. Evitz. I had already started issuing contracts. I don't know if you know this or not, but in HR, you always have to chase people for signatures. So the sooner I can get that out and start trying to get people in so that they're executed and we can, you know, go forward. So my apologies really sincerely to you as a board. Did not mean to put you in this position. I think I had some misunderstandings about your expectations and what my past experiences had been with those levels of positions. So what you're seeing in terms of, you know, your math, yes, we did build a salary schedule just like we did for all the other groups, for all the other contracts, and then we put a 2% on top of that in terms of what we issue to people. But I'm happy to give you copies of the old contracts and to give you a comparison of what the wages were, what the real wages were, because some of our staff were hired, you know, prorated. Some of our staff got increases late fall. So, you know, so that you know, like what exactly, when all is said and done, were they making compared to where we have them now and what that salary schedule looks like. You know, those kinds of things. I would share the draft of the handbook with you, but I still have a lot of things that I don't feel are germane that are in there. I don't want to wish to mislead you by providing you with information that we don't have any intention of hanging on to.
There were raises given in the fall.
There were some salary adjustments done for adult ed, for a few positions, for adult ed, in November.
Oh, like when we named Ms. Gowan.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I think a couple of people in the finance department were also impacted by that,
Right.
or maybe, I'm
So as
sorry,
we-
Ms. Piles,
yeah.
let me get
So
the
as-
exact
yeah,
dates.
so as-
But
I know that as we approve people for new positions, we did do that. I do want to refer back to our most recent example is when we hired Ms. Morrison as administrative assistant. Her contract as that support staff was brought before the board. Anything that is in a union goes in the consent agenda, but everything else, even the original contracts, were approved by the board, and it's listed in our minutes. So that's why it's important too, so that we have it in our minutes, and we are approving. So any central office staff that's not union, any contractors, any consultants, all of that comes before the board, so that we are aware of what employees, what our salary expenses, just all of that, and making sure that there is a consistency. And I know that when we spoke, when you presented to us the contracts for the directors, I don't recall administrative assistants and support staff being part of that, because I remember when we asked about what the increase was, it was $59,000, and all of the directors' increases added up to that amount.
and so did the increases for the central office support staff. So what I was trying to share at the time, and I apologize for not giving it to you in writing, but I will give it to you in writing going forward, was that the 59,000 included the increases for central office support staff, the increases for cabinet, and the increase that we were proposing for the superintendent's base salary.
Okay, so just so we're clear, if you, and I'm glad that this stuff is already set up, so, but if you would forward us the salary schedule that was developed,
Yep.
what the positions paid previously, and then what the new amounts are under the newly developed salary schedule, and then just give us the increase and then the total cost of these contracts. I believe we already have the total cost of the contracts for directors.
Are you also, and you also wanted their prior employment contracts?
Yes, I
Okay.
have those, I believe, and I can forward those to the board.
I don't have the previous ones for the.
Yeah, but if you have them, then yes.
Okay.
But I can do that too. So, and we will take care of this on Wednesday. So my question is when did we start paying this rate? Was it paid as of July 1st, or was it paid as of the day that
I
Sean
think
signed the contracts?
I think our first pay was July 2nd, which was why I think our board meeting was June 26th or June 27th, that last Monday in June, maybe June 28th. So I was trying to get those through.
Okay. Are there any other questions on this topic? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hazlett.
Thank you for
and
letting
we will add
me
that.
explain, and I will provide the information. And then going forward, Ms. Evans, yes, I will absolutely follow, our board policy with respect to employment contracts.
And one thing, Ms. Hazlett, I had sent it to the policy committee and asked them to schedule a meeting with you. But one of the wonderful things we have as part of our policy services is they provide an employee handbook. So our policies, our administrative regulations, and our handbook is all aligned, and there's no ambiguous language or anything that contradicts. So I'll forward that to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the report of the Interim Director of Finance, Ms. Jewel Claire.
This we do every year. It's for you to approve the borrowing to pay our loan, towards our loan payments, bonds, towards this year. It's estimated about $5.2 million. And I think last year was probably about 4, so it's just a little bit more. Next year, one of the bigger ones will fall off, and our payments will be, I don't even think we will need to borrow, because we will not need to borrow any more money, because we'll have enough from our what we levy to make those payments. But this year, we're going to need $5.2 million. Any questions?
No, and this is a formality. Thank you for that. So I move that the Board of Education approve the estimated borrowing of $5.2 million from the School Loan Revolving Fund for the 2021-22 fiscal year as outlined in the attached loan application. And the rationale is that loan proceeds needed to pay debt service cash flow needs in the 2021-22 school year. Is there support? Moved by Piles, supported by Kennard. There's no discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is unfinished business. Madam Secretary, have we covered the things that, I know we have an upcoming presentation that the board requested from Ms. Hazlett. She was on vacation, so that will be at our next board meeting. And Sean has been great about getting the answers to the questions we had from that. So
I believe everything has been covered. I know that Mr. McNatt is working on some things that we can follow up with at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. So unfinished business will be a standing item on our agendas going forward. So, Madam Secretary, if you have a list, forward that to the superintendent and to Paula, and that will always be included, and just copy me on it. That'll always be included on our agenda, so that we aren't just talking, we're like following through and getting things accomplished. Thank you. Next is a report of the board subcommittees. I know that finance and policy have been busy. I don't know if anybody wants to give a report or if we just move into our action items.
I'm sorry, Ms. Kennard, did you? So I was at the board office earlier this week, and there was some mail from 2 tribunals indicating they were requesting a reduction in their SEVs. One was a reduction of $4 million, another was a reduction of 29,000, and one was a reduction of approximately 1 million. I spoke with Ms. Claire about it. She informed me that it will have no effect on our income for taxes because she went with last year's values, last year's SEVs, but I did want everyone to know that this one, especially by $5 million, is quite a bit, and, but Ms. Claire confirmed that it would not affect any income from taxes.
It will affect the income, it's not the budget. I budgeted at the same amount for last year.
Okay.
The budget, it won't affect, our budget, but if they do go through, they do get reduced, it would break down the amount that we're able to collect from them. But that's why I budgeted at the same level, because, one of them, it was increased.
Sure.
5 million in 1 year, their assessment.
Oh, wow.
So they probably will get it taken down some, but, so that's why I budgeted very conservatively, so that stuff like this would not affect where think we're gonna be.
Thank you, Ms. Claire. And Ms. Evans, thank you for bringing that to our attention, because that's something that I didn't understand either, how that works. So thank you for that. Mr. Bergeron?
Yeah, so was that
Do you- Mike?
somebody just appealed their taxes, or did they win that appeal?
They're requesting the
That doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Right,
And
right.
If
It has,
it went up 5 million,
right.
yeah, okay.
But I'd just like everybody to know these possibilities are out there.
Ms. Kennard, did you have something?
No, I just wanted to inform the board that we did get some questions on finance that is quite lengthy. In the upcoming week, a couple of weeks or so, the Finance Committee will be meeting with and forwarding this to our Finance Director, Jewel, and we'll be meeting. And what those things are, I think, we'll have some responses to some of these things. It's quite lengthy, but so some things that was brought to from the board for administration to respond to.
Thank
So
you.
that's the Finance Committee. On the Policy Committee, we did meet with Miller and Johnson, our legal, to get information that was, as a FYI, at one of our board meetings pertaining to equity and excellence. I think the president had spoke of this. It was a FYI, it wasn't an action or anything. So I'm not going to get into that because it is an action item under the Board of President, but I wanted to let the board know that we did have a conversation pertaining to what that means. And so our president will bring that to us under report of the board president.
Thank you, Ms. Kennard. So moving on to the report of the board president. First, I sent all board members the committee appointments. And just, to recap this, the policy committee is Ms. German, Ms. Evitz, and Ms. Kennard. Personnel is Ms. German, Ms. Terrell, Ms. Evitz. Finance is Ms. Evitz, Ms. Wester, Ms. Kennard. CTE is Ms. Terrell, Mr. Bergeron, and Ms. Kennard. Real Estate Committee is Ms. Terrell and Mr. Bergeron, and we didn't have another request for that, so I will fill in as the third on that. Curriculum is Ms. German, Ms. Wester, and Ms. Kennard. Sinking Fund is Ms. Terrell, Ms. Evans, and Ms. Wester. The Recruiting Committee is Ms. German, Mr. Bergeron, and I will be sitting as the third on that. And then Healthy Living is Mr. Bergeron and Ms. Wester, and I will serve on that as well. I did receive an email this morning from Ms. Wester that due to personal and professional obligations, she is not able to serve on those committees that she requested and was appointed to. So some of those I'm already serving on, but I will fill in her place. But it is our goal that we really utilize our committees and meet with our directors and superintendent so that we're getting information and committee members can bring that back to board members, and that will make our meetings run smoother because we will have that information and not have to use our board meetings as learning seminars. So we can push that back into committee work. The next item for FYI is the board study session, which is now a special meeting. And that will be Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. At that, the only action item that night is to approve the central office contracts. And then it is just a board collaboration, trying to, see where board members are on, like where we're thinking as far as vision and mission and goals and where we want to move this district. Again, no action will be taken. This is just an opportunity for us to talk as board members. And then we will be meeting with Dr. Edmondson on the 5th of August. So this is just a collaboration prior to that. The next item is an FYI. This is just a potential idea, a wellness fair. So our teachers every day are in classrooms, and we are expecting them to deliver high quality instruction, but also take care of all of the non-academic needs of our students. And they do a great job, but I was wondering if the board would maybe want to put together a wellness fair at the beginning of the school year, specifically for our staff, and bring in different vendors, have like prize giveaways, for different wellness items, like get items donated. No ESSER funds will be used in this. I just want to state that, but maybe like if we could get prizes like massages or, hotel, just different things, and bring in like maybe someone from Mesa to talk about what the wellness benefits are, or just have different vendors. And our message to our staff is not only do we want you and expect you to care for our students, but we are committing to caring for you also. We care about our staff, our teachers, and not just in words, but in practical application, providing a wellness fair just to serve our staff and commit to being part of their wellness this next academic year. So that was just an idea to see, how the board feels about that, if that's something that we would like to discuss. Mr. Bergeron.
Yes, Madam President. I am the chairman of Western Wayne Family Health Center. That's exactly what we do for other communities. Romulus is one of our communities that we have grant money for. So if you want to do that, we can surely accommodate that.
That is wonderful, Mr. Bergeron. Thank you. Get that man a t-shirt. But yes, and this is something that we'll collaborate on. Here's the thing is we would very much, our superintendent and directors, you probably have more knowledge and direction than we do. We understand that school starts in a month and you guys are busy, so we would like to work with you without putting this on your plates. If the board, if the board would be willing to do this as a service to our staff, and just starting off, we can discuss that later, but at another time. But that was just the idea for a wellness fair. And Mr. Bergeron, your phone will be blowing up shortly. To Sean's phone. Next, so in the summer, we dress casual, or we're supposed to. I told Sean, everybody's probably wondering, what's that little kid doing in the center wearing t-shirts? But tonight, I am proudly donning my Hale Creek Elementary t-shirt, and just a shout out, Hale Creek Elementary is K through 5. They are located at 16200 Harrison Road. Dr. Yolanda Bloodsaw is the principal of that building. She is doing phenomenal work with her staff. I can't say enough great things about Dr. Bloodsaw. She is data driven. She came to her interview with a notebook like this of data, and it was just, and she is experienced in like really assessing where students are and implementing plans to really turn around academics. And Hale Creek has a Bright Futures program. They also have teachers on staff who solicit donations from family and friends to provide scholastic books to everyone in their class all year long, and their students get to keep those books, which is key because so many of our students don't own books in their home. And we have staff at Hale Creek that have been doing that for many years. So I just wanted to state that if you are K through 5 looking for a great school to attend next year, please check out Hale Creek Elementary. And if you are an incoming kindergartner, we have these great class of 2034 t-shirts. I know, right? It goes fast. And that we will give, and also a book, Joshua and Jasmine Go to Kindergarten, and these are available in all of our elementary schools. But if you enroll in any elementary school or Hale Creek Elementary, that is a gift from Romulus Community Schools to incoming kindergartners. So I stated earlier too that we have a new superintendent at RISA, Dr. Davida Colbert. I'm so excited for that. And I also want to recognize the new board president at RISA is Ms. Danielle Funderburg, served 12 years on our board here, and she is now board president at RISA. So I just wanted to bring awareness to that. The next item is an action item, and it's adoption of new policies. And I will read that motion in a minute. We are taking some of our administrative regulations and moving them into policy at the recommendation of the policy committee. And so those aren't changing, but one key change that's being presented tonight that is really exciting is the addition of an equity and excellence policy. And I'm just going to read the opening of that. But the school district commits to achieving equity and excellence for each and every student by preparing them for citizenship, higher education, and the workforce. The board will provide the necessary leadership and resources so every student with support from for his or her unique circumstances has access to and is provided the opportunities and experiences that lead to academic, emotional, physical, and social success. So, and I encourage everybody, if this is approved tonight, it will be posted on our website. But it goes on to say how we will take this Board of Education through policy is committing to an individualized approach for our students, so that regardless of what grade or what school a student is enrolled in person or virtually, We are committing to a rigorous curriculum. We are committing to high-quality instruction. And not only that, but we are committing to providing the necessary supports as recommended through our curriculum director and through our special ed director to make sure that any student who is enrolled at Romulus Community Schools can be successful and meet that standard. So I am very excited about that. So I will make a motion. I move that the Board of Education waive a first reading and adopt the policies as provided by Miller Johnson on July 22nd, 2021. The Policy Committee provided a copy of the red-lined manual to the board in advance of the meeting for review and recommends adoption. And the rationale is that Policy 1003, adoption or amendment of bylaws and policies. The board will adopt or amend bylaws and policies after readings at 2 separate board meetings. The board may, by a majority vote of members elected and serving, waive a first reading. Is there support? Was that German? Moved by Piles, supported by German. The floor is open for discussion. Mr. Bergeron.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I have no problem with that, but I would rather wait until our superintendent was back so he could go over this with us, with his ideas. Okay, I don't think to have a policy and procedure and change our bylaws without his input, I feel, nothing against our part-time guy, but I feel as though he should have input in this and be able to talk to us about that. And so instead of jumping in that, I won't vote for this right now. Not that I'm against it, but on the other hand, I would rather have Dr. Ben be a part of it.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Ms. Terrell?
Okay,
Ms. Terrell?
I agree with Mr. Bergeron, but for just a little bit of a different reason. You know, first reading is to provide notice and allow opportunity for input. I'm one of these people, call me old or whatever, I don't know. I'm one of these people where I need to actually have documents. I go over to the school board and pick up a packet prior to every meeting. I did go over on Friday, no one was there, and I actually reached out to you because I saw that there was a notation in a communication that indicated that there was a change. I missed it. I don't know how I missed it, but I did miss it. And so even with that, after I talked to you this afternoon, I did breeze through, but I missed some of these pieces. And I'm sitting here like, oh my goodness. So that, along with the fact that we do have a board member that is not present today, and then, as Mr. Bergeron just said, we have a superintendent that's not available, I would appreciate that we would consider this be the first read, and then come back to it with the second read, allowing people to have the opportunity to review, myself included, do whatever research, and be able to have input into these policies that are going to be implemented. I mean, I thought I caught everything. I'm looking, part of the reason was I'm looking on my phone with this little screen and I'm pushing over and pulling back, and that's why I like to actually have this, and I make a special effort every time that there's a meeting to get this so that I can really do my research over the weekend and understand what's coming before the table. So I would appreciate it that we consider this to be the first read and then come back on our second read and vote.
Okay. Is there any other comments from board members? I will say that, so there, with the exception of equity and excellence, there's no new or changed policies. It's simply things that are already approved and part of our administrative regulations being moved into policy for clear communication. So there are no changes. And the other thing I want to bring up is we have, since Dr. Edmondson has been here, we have amended policies, and it has been our practice with him and also before him to waive first reading. It doesn't mean that we have to, but I just wanted to state that that is what we have been doing with him. So I just wanted to make that clear so there doesn't appear to be anything being done differently or pushed through. And with the exception of equity and excellence, these are administrative regulations just moving, not new policy. Do you need a mic? Ms. German?
Is it possible that we can move to have the policies that came from the administrative regulations approved, and then have Dr. Edmondson and Ms. Webster be a part of the equity and excellence reading and review?
We can do whatever. I can amend that and pull that. So I would like to make a motion to amend this motion and to remove the adoption of equity and excellence, and just have tonight be a first reading for equity and excellence, and then a final reading and adoption at another meeting, and then the approval of the others that aren't new. Is there support for that? So moved by Piles, supported by German to amend the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Mr. Bergeron, did you vote?
I voted yes.
Okay. So, Madam Secretary, please let the record reflect 5 in favor and 1 opposed. Ms. Terrell? Okay. So, we will vote on the amended motion to waive the first reading and adopt the policies with the exception of equity and excellence. That will be a first reading only. That is the motion on the floor. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have a resolution to adopt MASB's Board of Governance Standards. And what this is this, the governance, we already govern and we have governance standards. But when we aren't governing as well as we should or could be, adopting new governance standards helps us become more effective, and most importantly, these standards increase the board accountability, individual and collectively. And I will state that these governance standards are developed by MASB. They are developed actually by board members, for board members, and this is based on 30 years of research in how board decisions impact student outcomes. So I will read the motion, and then, Madam Secretary, I will have you read the resolution during discussion. But the motion is as follows. Move that the board adopt MASB's governance standards as the governance standards for Romulus Community Schools Board of Education. This replaces any previously adopted governance standards or board operating procedures. Adopting these standards helps to formalize the components of culture so that over time, the same principles of effective governance can be commonly understood and practiced, even though the membership of the board may change. The rationale is these governance standards are based on 30 years of research showing a correlation between the work of school boards and student achievement. They provide a framework for boards to improve effectiveness, focus efforts, and enhance understanding about what it takes to operate effectively as a team. Reaching a common understanding of the key building blocks of effective governance is an essential first step. The Board of Education, in cooperation with the superintendent and stakeholders, establishes and commits to a vision for the school district that emphasizes high expectations for the achievement of all students and quality instruction. The Board of Education governs in a manner that is dignified and worthy of trust. The Board of Education is accountable to the school district community. The Board of Education holds the superintendent accountable for creating the outcomes identified in the school district plan. By adopting these governance standards, the Romulus Community Schools Board of Education is demonstrating our commitment to governing effectively on behalf of students, promoting greater self-accountability, and providing a useful tool for the community to assess how our board is doing. Is there support? Moved by Piles, supported by Kennard. So there is a motion to adopt the resolution, and so we have that. Madam Secretary, would you please read the resolution?
Board of Resolution for the adoption of MASB's Board of Education Governance Standards. Whereas 30 years of research on school district leadership has proven a correlation exists between the work of school boards and student achievement, and whereas school boards in high-achieving districts exhibit characteristics and practices that differ greatly from those in lower-achieving school districts, regardless of socioeconomical status, and whereas the Board of Education of Romulus Community Schools is committed to governing the district in a manner that creates high achievement and positive outcomes for the students, and now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of Romulus Community Schools, the Board of Education governance standards published by the Michigan Association of School Boards, and in doing so, the Board of Education of Romulus Community Schools commits to conducting itself in a manner consistent with the Board of Education governance standards, and individuals of the Romulus Community Schools of Education commit to conducting him/herself in a manner consistent in the individual board member standards, and the Board of Education of Romulus Community Schools shall ensure the Board of Education governance standards are visible at every meeting, and the Board of Education of Romulus Community Schools shall visit and revisit the Board of Education governance standards regularly to ensure their continued influence in the board's work, and the Board of Education of Romulus Community Schools shall hold itself accountable to these standards, and individual members of the Romulus Community Schools Board of Education shall address behaviors that are not in alignment with governance standards. Adopted this 26th day of July 2021.
Thank you, Secretary Evans. The floor is open for discussion.
Madam President,
Yes, Ms. Terrell.
I did have a conversation with you today on this, and I feel like this is a premature resolution being presented. I believe we have had a couple workshops, and we do have a new board, and I do believe this is something that should be presented in full context of what the resolution speaks to. I do feel that there are some areas that there is board overreach. There are some areas that we can do better in, and I realize that everyone here is here to make things better for our students. But I think just to do this as a symbolic gesture, when there is no full context to board governance and what it means, and people walking away from or reviewing a meeting feeling offended, not understanding exactly what the governance piece is in its entirety, this is something that we should look at and absolutely adopt after having a board retreat, board workshop, something that defines our roles in definition, so that we know what this resolution really means, and we're able to adhere our actions to meet that standard, because it's a good standard to addressed to make sure that we're moving forward, to make sure that we're governing in a way that encourages and educates and builds. And so I just wanted to add that I agree wholeheartedly with the resolutions, but I do think that it's something that we should not be addressing just as a symbolic measure to get there. I think we need to work on the actions that take us to that point.
Thank you, Ms. Terrell. I do want to clarify. It is my hope and my assumption and my desire that nothing that is done at this board table is symbolic, but that we are committing to every action that is approved by this board. And these governance standards in the packet that board members received, it clearly delineates what is the board's role and what is overreach and what is administrative role. And so adopting these standards are our commitment to governing as a board and not doing that. And the toolkit that was provided to each board member, it talks about it, but the practice is we adopt it, but it's going to be a muscle that we exercise and learning it and adhering to it. So adopting these governance standards will not make us this, wonderful, unified, well-functioning board immediately. It's our commitment as a board to adhere to the standards of governance that will lead us to that outcome. And so, and I don't remember if you were at the last meeting, but they were printed out, but it has like all of those functions. And as we go forward into these key meetings and workshops, this would be a valuable standard for us to adhere to so we aren't continuing to overlap. Anybody else have? Okay. Seeing no further discussion, there is a motion on the floor. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, let the record show 5 yes, 1 opposed. Ms. Terrell. Motion carries. We have adopted MASB's Board of Education governance standards.
President Piles, there's a document here that needs to be signed by all members of the school board. So
Okay.
before you leave tonight, if you would stop by and sign it, I would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for that reminder. And Paula, if you would please have that resolution just printed as part of our board packet ongoing so that we are reminded of our commitment. And it would be, it is my desire that we hold each other accountable to this, not with criticism, but with full support. Mr. Bergeron?
Is this the time for open discussion?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. The next action item is, the next action item is the illegal harassment and discrimination training. And if the board members, you can strike the designation of Title IX coordinators and Section 504 ADA compliance officer and web accessibility coordinator, as those are not functions of the Board of Education. So we will not vote on those. Those are administrative roles. So the motion on the floor is a move that the Board of Education acknowledge and approve the annual training for illegal harassment and discrimination training. The rationale was that the Board of Education previously adopted a resolution based on the recommendation of Collins and Blaha Legal Counsel to participate in annual training. The budget implication is, and again, this training will be provided by 2 attorneys from Miller Johnson. So our training is aligned with our policy, is aligned with our administrative regulations, is aligned with our employee handbook. The budget implication is a flat fee of $1,000. It includes the preparation of the presentation, travel, presentation, which lasts approximately 90 minutes, followed by any question and answer. 2 attorneys will come to us, and this is open to the board and superintendent, but also to any central office directors and building administrators who would also like to attend. And whether people are, oh, that's the motion I'll talk about later. Is there support? Support. Moved by Piles, supported by Evans. I will say that since this will be a meeting and it will be recorded, even for our, if building administrators or central office directors are not able to attend, they're welcome to attend, but it will be available because we will record this. And this is something that, based on legal recommendation of Collins and Blaha, following a complaint, that we do this training annually. So that will be something that is recorded and available and become an expected standard that will be adhered to district-wide. And there are 2 dates that are proposed for this. One is August 16th, which Dr. Edmondson and directors and building administrators have their retreat that day. The other option is Wednesday, August 25th. So, I mean, if we do it on the 16th, we can record it, but we know that we won't have any, we won't have our superintendent and administrators available, even if they wanted to attend. So I would recommend that we do not consider the August 16th, but that we schedule for the 25th of August. Are there any questions? It's the 4th Wednesday of August. August 25th? We can set that, probably be in the evening to accommodate work schedules. Unless, you know, if everyone is available earlier, that's, I mean, anything's an option, whatever works best. But yeah, this was a resolution adopted by the board in February. So, and we've been through a lot of things, so it didn't take place. But back to school is it's timely. 6 o'clock on the 25th? Yes. Okay. If there are no questions or comments, we can vote on the motion. Those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Cooper, are there any communications from the public? Okay, any communications from superintendent? Any communications from board members? Mr. Bergeron?
Madam President, one of the first things that we had in my meetings when I first started on this board was this meeting on August 5th, okay? And the meeting on August 5th, we discussed this probably for 3 hours, And all of a sudden, I see that the gentleman, Rod, what is his name?
Green.
Green, doesn't want to do the program. Now, I got a couple of contacts at RISA and with the Michigan Association of School Boards, and the bottom line is that he had a phone call from somebody from Miller Johnson, our law firm, and told him not to do the program.
That is not true. He received a call from Brad Benazik, MASB's legal counsel.
Pardon me?
I said, that is not true. Dr. Green received a call from Brad Benazik, who is legal counsel for MASB. And based on their conversation, Rod Green told Brad Benazik that he was no longer interested in doing this particular workshop, but would be open to working with the board at another time. And I can forward that email to you if you would like. I'll forward it to the whole board.
Well, I didn't know who this Brad was, okay?
Brad works for MASB. He is legal counsel, but he's MASB legal counsel, and he spoke with Rod.
Okay, but did somebody else from Miller Johnson call over there? And
Johnson
put an undue, because you know what, and the only thing I'm saying is we probably spent 4 hours on this issue.
Right.
On this issue, and then this blows up like this. It has, in my opinion, the appearance of impropriety.
Okay, so that.
So anyway, I'm just saying that, you know what, as much time as I spent on that.
Right.
And wasted on that, now all of a sudden it's gone. And
Yeah.
with the information that I'm hearing, I want to see something from somebody stating that he didn't have any kind of pressure put on him not to do our
Yeah, so no, there was no pressure put on him. And if somebody at RISA or MASB your contacts told you otherwise, I would love to know who told you that, because I would like to clarify with them also, because that is.
you
that
don't
is
have nothing to
untrue.
do with it if that's the case.
Well, I mean, you said that your contacts at RISA or MASB told you this, and so.
It told me that they had some undue pressure on
Right,
there.
so-
But I didn't mention you at all.
No,
But
I'm
what
not
I'm
saying that, but I'm
saying
saying I would
is,
like to clarify that with them, because to my
well,
knowledge,
you
RISA is
can't
not even
clarify
aware
it
of
with
this.
them until I find out
Right.
from Rod Green.
Right.
So anyway, that's all I'm saying,
Okay.
Mr. President. After wasting time, okay, time after time, and having this fall through like this it just looks phony to me, okay? And I've been around the block a few times. I'm not accusing anybody or anything, but the bottom line is that makes me upset because I wasted 4 hours of my life talking on stuff that is nothing, so.
Okay, so I will respond to you and state on the record, because it is always my commitment to operate with integrity and transparency. So what happened was I received board member concerns about doing this particular training with Dr. Green due to a breach of contract during negotiations and some other actions that were proceeded with. So rather than bring it back for vote, I had to ask legal, what is our contractual obligation, either implied or written? And so in asking that question, they were not sure and reached out to Brad. And Brad then talked to Rod, who said he was no longer interested, and then I sent an email and clarified that with Dr. Green.
So, Mr. President, what you're saying is you got pressure from other board members.
I didn't get pressure.
Oh, well, you got concerned with other
No,
board members.
I was
We had a
asked-
vote, and it went 5-1
Yes.
on having him come in and do that
So
program.
so Mr. Bergeron, I was asked if this could come back before the board. I did not know if it could come back before the board, because I didn't know if there is a contract, written or implied. So I asked legal, and then when legal sought that answer and talked to Brad, there were multiple concerns that I would rather not talk to, right? I can talk to you privately, but I can assure you, Brad Benazik, who is legal counsel with MASB, reached out to Dr. Green, and Dr. Green said he was no longer interested. Dr. Green said that there was no pressure. My question is there a contract, and would we be breaking it if it came back before the board? And that is the information. So whoever
And you
said
know
to
what?
you
And you know
he was
what?
pressured gave you wrong information.
And that's all well and good, but the bottom line is that we shouldn't have went through 4 hours of talking if that's what was gonna happen. If you knew that at the beginning, or whoever knew that, okay, but to waste time like
Knew what?
that is ridiculous, okay, with all due respect.
Yeah, I'm sorry, knew what? About the breach of contract? I stated that. But, I mean, here we are today, and I was asked if the board could reconsider that, and I didn't know the answer. So I reached out to legal to get that answer, and the result of that, without any pressure, and no one from legal nor myself spoke, it was Rod Green told that to Brad Benazik, who they are both MASB. And I sent an email to Dr. Green and confirmed that. So I think that is it for board member comments. I don't have any. Motion to adjourn? Moved by Piles, supported by Kennard. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Meeting adjourned at 9:07. Oh, I gotta send this